We'll now call the December 14th Plan Commission to order. Roll call, please.
Anna here.
Sullivan here.
Willow here.
Lorick here. Kavich here.
Zukowski here. Oldani here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
That will bring us to the approval of the minutes of November 23rd, 2021. So commissioners, if you would all take a look, and hopefully you previewed them a little bit. You are satisfied, there's no errors, omissions, or discussion. Motion, please.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of November 23rd.
I interrupt for just a moment, please. There are two sets of minutes, so if you could do two motions, one for the special meeting, one for the regular meeting.
Yes. Okay. The minutes as listed, let's specify, and we will start with the special plan commission meeting. Thank you for that, Carrie. Do appreciate that.
Seifert moves to approve a special planning commission meeting, November 23rd, 2021.
Oldani seconds.
Roll call, starting with Commissioner Hanna.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Willow, aye.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Zukowski, aye. Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And then if we could get approvals of the normal planning meeting held November 23rd, 2021. When you're satisfied, there's no omissions, errors, or discussions.
Oldani moves to approve the minutes of the Oak Creek Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Commissioner Sullivan.
Sullivan, aye.
Willow, aye.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Zukowski, aye. Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye. Anna, aye.
Okay, item 4 is significant common council actions. Carrie, would you like to announce that?
There were none.
Thank you. Item 5 is Board of Housing and Zoning Appeal actions that were taken since we last met. There are currently none. And item 6 is our quarterly Parks Recreation Commission actions. Again, we get those reports bi-monthly. And I believe in the next report will be January 25th, 2022. So that'll get us to item 7, and that's our first public hearing. And it's for a sign appeal. Submitted on behalf of Freighter Medical College of Wisconsin that would allow the applicant to install the following signs at 7901 South 6th Street. Carrie, Lori, I will have you read that in the public notice.
We're going to get this right.
Yeah, one of these days.
It's okay. One day.
You guys keep moving around. It's hard to keep track of you.
Trying to keep you young. Published November 18th, 2021. City of Oak Creek notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. Important notice. This meeting will be held both in person and by video conference. Persons wishing to participate in the video conference must register via the website prior to the meeting. The video conference will begin at 5:55 p.m. to allow participants to log in. Persons who wish to view the meeting live without participating may visit the City of Oak Creek YouTube page at the website provided. Persons requiring other reasonable accommodations may contact the city at 414-766-7000. Requests should be made as far in advance as possible, preferably a minimum of 48 hours. This is a public hearing for a sign appeal, which will be held on December 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Common Council Chambers and via Zoom. The appellant is Zach Wegner. Text key number is 813-9056-000. The property location is 7901 South 6th Street. This is a request for variance from section 17.0334, part of the Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District General Development Plan and Regulating Plan. In section 17.0706, related to the number of wall signs allowed per elevation, the number of ground signs allowed per street frontage, and maximum dimensions for proposed signs. If granted, the variances would allow the applicant to install the following signs in addition to the permitted signs. There'll be 3 wall signs with the dimensions provided and 20 vinyl signs. The dimensions are provided also on this sheet. The zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD, Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 10th day of November 2021. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, Mayor Dan Bukevich, Chairman. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to speak, please step up to the podium, or for those participating remotely, press *9 on your phone and notify the moderator that you would like to be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record and address all questions and comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open. Mayor?
Thank you, Lori. As was stated, this is a public hearing. We will make 3 calls for comments. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium and give your name and address. So first call, anybody wishing to speak? Second call, anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, name and address for the minutes and records. Third and final call, anybody wishing to address this, please approach podium, give your name and address. We will now close the public hearing and move on to item 8A, which is consideration of approval of those signs at Drexel Town Square. So, Lori, do you want to start us off with this? And then it's probably going to go over to the applicant.
Sure. As Plan Commission may remember, just November 9th, 2021, Freighter came forward with a set of variance requests that were approved through here for several wall signs on each elevation of the building. And they are here again to present the remaining portion of the signs that they'd like to place on the building. So in front of you, you'll see that there's 3 wall signs and 20 vinyl signs. I have a site plan provided for you so that you can see that the new wall signs are on the east elevation, west elevation, and south elevation. On the east elevation, we have a new emergency sign. The dimensions are provided. They are going to be keeping the Drexel Town Square Health Center and Freighter Medical College logo. On the west elevation, they're adding the hospital logo at the very top. But they are keeping the existing Freighter logo and the Drexel Town Square Health Center language. On the south elevation, they're going to be adding a new Freighter logo along with the language that says Freighter Community Hospital, Oak Creek. The emergency sign that you see to the right is actually something that was approved in the last Plan Commission meeting. And then we have a grouping of vinyl signs that will be found on all the doors. These are pretty standard vinyl signs. It has the vinyl logo, what type of entrances, whether it's inpatient, healthcare center, or I believe emergency. And then they're going to have logo or signage that will indicate the door number, no smoking sign, and I believe that is it. So I do have the variance considerations and criteria listed next for you to use in your decision.
Is that it, Lori?
I did fly through that, so if you have any questions, please let me know.
No, that is good. Before we go to the commissioners, I'm going to give the applicant a chance to speak on behalf and maybe iron out some questions prior to it going to commission.
Definitely. So
Name and address, please.
is my mic working here?
Press the talk looking button.
Oh, here we go. There we go. Name is Zach Wenger. I represent Freighter on behalf of Lemberg Electric. Address 4085 North 128th Street in Brookfield. And as a partner of Freighter, we are the contractor responsible for the upgrades to the Oak Creek signage. You probably saw me here last month on the 9th for the first portion of it. So these 3 additional signs would round out the signage that we're looking to have approved by the commission. So I'm here to answer any questions, any concerns that the commission may have. A lot of thought has gone into this along with Mr. Mayor as well as Lori. I do appreciate, and Carrie as well, and I appreciate all of their cooperation with this and helping us come to a solution that benefits both Freighter and the community. And obviously one of those big things, which Mr. Mayor pointed out, was keeping the Drexel Town Square branding. So that was something that Freighter took into account when it came to these 3 extra signs. So I'm here to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Great. Thank you, Zach. Do appreciate that. And yes, in full disclosure, staff's been working with the applicant and I did attend a meeting with them. One of the things we were very conscious of is that Drexel Town Square brand name, which they're still there. They gave some explanations on the hospital sign, the big blue hospital sign, which is a significant change. Sorry, I'm going to editorialize this.
No, that's great.
But it's my understanding that when you become an emergency facility or a hospital like that, that's the only time you can use that sign. And that was critical to the Freighter brand.
Correct.
As well. So, that's kind of something different we haven't seen here. And there's actually a reason for that I don't know if that's governed by the state or.
It's the Department of Health Services, from my understanding. And to your point as well, after reviewing and having our meeting, Frederick did find out that when people think of Frederick Oak Creek, they don't think Frederick Oak Creek, they think Frederick Drexel Town Square. So changing that branding would have actually been a hindrance to them. So they have to have sign BR.04, which you can see in the package here, by law per DHS. However, that main brand is the Frederick Drexel Town Square Health Center. So we know it's important to keep that.
Oh, cool. Selfishly, I find that really cool.
It's not selfish at all. No, you're good.
Okay. Anyways, enough of me. We'll go to the commissioners. Christine, would you like to start us out?
I have nothing really going on, so.
Okay, Matt?
I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
Dawn?
No questions for me?
Greg?
No questions. I think I said this at the last meeting. I think it's important to have a lot of wayfinding signs at a hospital. They could be confusing and people are oftentimes in distress, need to find their way around. So it's understandable. Looks like pretty much standard signage for most hospitals, numbering of windows and doors and things of that nature. I have no concerns.
Okay. Chris?
Looks good to me.
Don?
No questions.
Fred?
No questions.
Jocelyn?
I do have a question for the applicant. Can you go through in a little more detail the additional vinyl signs? Just trying to understand where they're going and in relationship to where they are in relationship to the other signs that are in the area.
Certainly. So it gets a little bit difficult here because Lemberg is not contracted to do the vinyl work. I wrap this all into one submittal so we can get it all approved at the same time. So I'm going to do my best, but if there's any questions, I can certainly bring them back to the commission. Now, from my understanding with the vinyl, it goes on each and every door from the outside in. The reason for that, per Mr. Lorick's comment as well, is it's very important that the proper entrances are branded appropriately, especially in an emergency. When you're in a hustle to find the right place to go, it's very critical that the correct branding is on the correct door. So as you can see from the renderings, for example, the inpatient entrance here, that's going to be just your standard hospital patient coming in for an inpatient. You don't want anyone from an emergency going into the inpatient entrance, of course. So that's where that additional wayfinding, we'll call it, comes into play to make sure that people are going where they need to go. If I have an 8-month-old son. If he's having heart issues, I'm going to take him to the emergency department as opposed to stitches where I'm going to take him to the urgent care. So that's where it's very important that that's crystal clear where to go.
I just want to make sure I understand, because for the entrances, I thought they all had signs above the door that said those exact same things.
They do, and that's the purpose of these signs is to draw people in from far away. The vinyl is going to be, I'm right here in front. So originally, in the original package, we had some additional freestanding signs. We call them pedestrian signs. Those were removed from the scope just because we felt that there was too many signs in the property. Therefore, with the removal of those additional pedestrian wayfinding signs, we have this vinyl added on each door now, which properly brands each door when you're standing there in front of walking to the sidewalk. That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I myself really have no questions with this, having been in the meeting. Again, I think Greg and the question that was asked and summed it up enough. So with that, I think we can look for a motion for approval on this, please.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approves sign variances allowing the installation of 3 wall signs and 20 vinyl window signs at the property of 7901 South 6th Street.
Oracle second.
Roll call, beginning with Dawn?
Hello, I.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye. Fuldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out and doing all the hard work. I know it's process, but it's the proper thing to do, and I think we did get that correct, so.
I agree. Like I said, I appreciate Lori's, yours, Carrie's, and the commission's help getting through this. And I think everyone's gonna be very happy with the final result. So thank you all very much.
Great, okay. Moving on, that was 8A, correct? Next is 8B, sign plan review. No, we were there.
No, that's correct.
Oh, it is Zach again. Okay. Again, it is a review proposed sign plan submitted by Zach Wagner again from Lundberg Electric on behalf of Freighter and Medical College for the existing medical facility on the property at 7901 South 6. So, Carrie?
Back to Lori.
Or back to Lori, sorry.
That's okay. So this is just a master sign plan update. We felt that with such significant changes in signage, we did need to update that previous plan that was approved back in 2017. So this updated sign plan incorporates all the variance requests that we received in July 11th of 2017, November 9th of 2021, and tonight. But it also incorporates 7 5 feet by 4 feet directional signs. And we can just quickly go through this again, but you've seen almost all of it. We've got the west elevation with the canopy sign and wall signs, east elevation with a couple more wall signs, the health center canopy, we've added the health center logo over the top of it. The east elevation of the emergency addition, we've got 3 wall signs. The south elevation, we've added the 2 wall signs on that. We've changed out 2 of the monument signs and just made them a little bit larger to incorporate that emergency indicator. Then we've got the 7 proposed directional signs, which you haven't seen previously before, but they do actually already have these up on the property, but unfortunately they just didn't realize that they needed to go and update their plan for this. They are going to be refacing 2 existing directional signs, which will indicate to the people off of Drexel not to turn right by the parking structure. Then we've got the wall signs, which you approved, the vinyl signs, which you approved in the previous variance request. Then we've got the existing parking structure signage. There's some on the east, 1 logo sign on the east elevation, and then another one on the south elevation. So I had the suggested motion for you on the slide here, and as you see, there really wasn't that many changes. So,
Well, thank you, Lori, for that update. And again, that's pretty much what we had gone over the 23rd and then previously just now. So I'll take it to the commission. Christine?
Nothing here.
Matt?
No comments.
Don?
Questions?
Greg?
Nothing, thank you.
Chris? Oh, Don?
No questions.
Fred?
No questions.
Chauncey?
No questions.
Okay, I myself have none either. It was explained that well. So with that, motion 8B.
Work moves that the Plan Commission approve the updated master sign plan submitted by Zach Wagner, Lemberg Electric for the Freighter Building at 7901 South 6th Street.
And a second.
Roll call beginning with Alderman Lorik.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Fuldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye. Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Aye.
And that will get us to 8C, and that is a Plan Commission consultant, a discussion of potential office and warehouse facility. It's concept for Action Express submitted by Wellspring Construction Group for the property at 7221 South 10th. Now it's Carrie's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated, this is a Plan Commission consultation for a conceptual plan. So this is an opportunity for the applicants to get initial Plan Commission feedback prior to submission of a formal application. The current the current zoning of the property is M1. It does say that it had a conditional use permit that was approved in the past. However, that conditional use permit didn't actually come to fruition. So there's a little bit of a lag there in terms of establishing the use. Neither here nor there for this particular request. What they are proposing is to actually divide the property and then develop the southern portion of the property with a 15,000 roughly square foot building on the southern side, and incorporate some vehicle parking south of that building with truck docks and parking on the west side of the property, and stormwater in a separate lot. So this is the existing property. You can barely see the property lines on the screen, but this is just to give everybody an orientation. The existing stormwater pond you can see just south of the building. So to orient you, north is actually to the right. And this is the proposed concept plan that has been presented. You can see what is existing and what is proposed. Now, there are a couple of notes that were included in this site plan, some from the applicant, some from the water and sewer utility. Based on some staff comments, there are some changes that would need to occur. A couple of things to begin. Laterals cannot cross property lines, so therefore there would be some changes needed. New sanitary sewer and water laterals will be required for the proposed and the new building. The existing laterals serving the building would have to be abandoned and again extended to serve. The pond will need to be expanded, and that's to serve the existing plus the new building and impervious surface. The code requires a minimum of 30% open and green space for the parcels. So, discussion point for this is in a couple of parts. From a stormwater and engineering perspective, the preference is to have a pond on its own outlot. We did have discussions in a meeting with the applicant and all of the departments involved regarding this. Neither of the development lots under the scenario with the pond and an outlot would be allowed to utilize that outlot for fulfillment of the 30% green space. But there is an alternative to that. The first alternative is as a part of a CSM, which would be required to divide the property. The dividing line would actually go through the pond itself, and then divide that to the north and south equally, or roughly equally. Each lot would still be required to maintain that 30% open and green space. However, you would be able to incorporate half the pond. In that scenario, also, an agreement between the two parcels would be required for the shared use and maintenance of the stormwater pond, and that note would have to be included in the CSM as well. A second alternative would be as part of a CSM process, the pond is incorporated into either the north lot or the south lot. You'd still have to maintain 30% open space per parcel in that scenario. However, it does give a little bit of, a little bit extra to one or both of the parcels, depending on how it's divided. So it makes it very clear that the stormwater pond goes with a lot and is not in its own outlot. Just a little bit different way of doing this. It would be as if the parcel were undeveloped at this point, and you'd still have to have stormwater on that lot. The difference is, of course, because you have two developments on two separate parcels, you would have to have that managed agreement. So a note would have to be on the CSM for that scenario as well. We did note that in this plan, because it's only conceptual, you do need to incorporate landscaping per code requirements, including parking lot screening, loading dock screening, those kinds of things. Paved areas would also be required to maintain that 5-foot pavement setback. Exterior light fixtures would have to be shielded with cutoff fixtures and directed downward. Those are just standard code requirements provided just for planning purposes. And we didn't actually see any conceptual elevations. However, we did speak with the applicant and their consultants about what those exterior building materials would be required to be under the existing code. So with that in mind, this is an open discussion for the Plan Commission to provide feedback, also for the applicant and their consultants to kind of have a dialogue and get some perspective on how to move forward with this development should it receive that positive feedback. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we go to commission, would the applicants like to identify themselves? And if you'd like to say anything, the floor is yours.
All right. Tim Netbrath, Wellspring Construction, 227 Sussex Street, Pewaukee, Wisconsin. I think Carrie and her team did a really great job of outlining it. It goes over what we discussed in a staff meeting. The main reason we're here is just to make sure the planning commission is on board with us dividing the property. And as Carrie summarized, alternative one, where we would put a lot line down the property and then share the green space of the pond on both sides to maintain the 30% green space, and then just have an easement or a cross-access maintenance agreement between the two properties, maintain the pond would be our preference. So based on that, we're looking for your feedback.
Okay, thank you. Seeing as that seems to be a major issue, I'm going to start with our resident engineer. Matt, any comments concerning the stormwater? You're probably the most knowledgeable here when it comes to the engineering part of that.
No, Carrie explained it, perfectly, and I think those were the discussions we had with the applicant and internally with our stormwater management. Obviously our preference would be the outlet, but we do understand how that hinders some of the development potential there. So stormwater maintenance agreement would be with one parcel, and then they'd have to have that internal agreement between the two parcels and noted on the CSM. So Carrie had it very well articulated.
Okay. Start on my right, Commissioner Chandler. Questions, comments?
Okay, I do have a question. So I just wanted to understand the proposed area. So there's a building to the north that already exists, and you're looking to build another one to the south of that? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are both planned to be office areas along with manufacturing, or is one or the other? One is the office, one is manufacturing.
Both buildings would have office and manufacturing or warehousing associated with it, so.
Okay. Okay, and so can you provide a little more information on the plan for the two buildings?
The existing building will remain its current use, and then this would become a separate building on a separate lot that could be any business. Right now it's proposing to be a warehouse with a small office.
Thank you.
Fred?
Excuse me, are you going to enclose this facility like you have the plant now with fencing around it? Right now you look at it, you have fencing in the front and on the sides of your building.
Existing building is completely fenced.
Fenced in, yeah. From
And are you going to enclose now this new facility with fencing also?
Yeah, we'd probably do it the same way, somewhere toward the middle or toward the back of the building to secure from the building back.
Sir, if you
Kind of
could,
like it is now.
I apologize. If you could provide your name and address for the record.
Scott Schuster with Action Express, 6023 South Howell Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Are you going to have a separate entrance on the south side going into that facility?
Correct.
I can see that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Fred. Don?
I have no questions.
Chris?
None either.
Greg?
Excuse me. Just one question. If you go the route of the first choice with putting a lot line down the middle of the stormwater management pond, will that cause any issues with that existing metal fence there? Does that have to be, is there a requirement for that to be anywhere near the lot line or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
it can still go around the pond.
Okay. Thank you.
Don?
No, nothing for me.
Matt, I'll give you the floor again if you'd like.
No, I just, as we continue to move forward, if this does, continue to work with water and sewer utility, that's important, especially with the extension of the utilities within 10th Street and then the stormwater management pond. That's about our comments on engineering.
Steve?
Nothing here. Thanks.
I'll defer with staff too. It makes sense to try to develop the property to its fullest potential, and it's probably the shared pond. If the pond were to go on one site, does the topography of the existing site need to change in any way, shape, or form that way?
Don't believe so.
Again, I think Matt's advice is probably most prudent. Continue to work with our engineering, our water and sewer department. I think it's a great little addition, great repurpose of that building. So it's been successful. I know you guys added on some parking back there not too long ago. And just for reference, in the existing building, the whole east side of it is basically office, and then the back side was manufacturing at one point in time until this company took it over. So, and then of course, through the back, the parking lots will be connected. So basically you will have 3 entrances into this facility, so to speak, and they're all gated either way. Okay. Do we provide enough information to have direction to move forward? Because I know you came in here looking for direction. I think we hit it though.
All right, appreciate your feedback and your positive feedback, I guess, so thanks.
Very good. That was C. Will get us to 8D, and that's review of site, building, and related plans submitted by Burns McDonnell Engineering Company on behalf of We Energies for an addition to the Elm Road Generating Station properties at 4801 East Oakwood Road and 11060 South Chicago Road. So, Carrie?
Mr. Mayor, we are going to have Jack present on the We Energies additions this evening.
Jack. All right.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. As you can see, the current zoning is M1 Lakefront Overlay. This is a proposal for 2 additions to the Elm Road Generating Station. One is for a wastewater enclosure, an expansion of that, and a new bioreactor enclosure. Because these are utilities, they're exempt from setbacks. As you can see, these are the locations of the proposed additions. Everything will be out of view from surrounding properties, and nothing is on the west of the parcel of the multiple parcels that We Energies occupies. The building will be constructed with both of the buildings will be constructed with insulated precast concrete panels, and due to the location of this and the nature of this proposal, landscape plans are not required. On the screen, you'll see the elevations for both the bioreactor enclosure and the expansion to the wastewater enclosure. With that being said, there's a suggested motion for approval on the screen for Plan Commission consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you. As per se, I will ask you guys if you want to make a comment going forward. I think you're either with We or Burns McDonnell. Anything you'd like to say before we go to commission?
I think we're good here. Any specific questions?
Just not, we'll get to that, but if you want to speak, then we'll need name and address and the whole deal. If not, you can wait and do it when we ask, so. Okay. All right. Let's go with Chauncey. Let's start on your end.
I do have a question for the applicant. Can you provide a little more information just for better understanding? Is there a new enclosure and an extension of an existing enclosure? There are 2 different locations. Can you just provide more information about the 2 scenarios that we have in here?
Sure. My name is Taylor Robertson with Burns McDonnell Engineering Company in Kansas City, Missouri. There are 2 separate enclosures. There's an existing enclosure that we're expanding and adding a section onto for new equipment. And there's a new larger enclosure at a different location on the property for all the new equipment, or for the rest of the new equipment.
Okay, so there are 2 different locations. Okay, and so for the one location that's existing, that's expanding, can you provide a little more information on the purpose for the expansion?
Sure. The purpose for that expansion is the existing enclosure includes wastewater treatment equipment. We're adding on to that wastewater treatment equipment, and we need to on the front end near where we're expanding with specific equipment so that the new equipment on the back end and the new enclosure can operate properly.
Thank you.
Fred?
Now, what material are you gonna have for the building itself? Is it gonna be compatible to what you have for the rest of the facility, or is it something that's new? Yeah.
The building materials that we're intending to use are precast concrete wall panels. I believe most of the rest of the facility has insulated metal wall panels.
Thank you.
Don?
No questions. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Yeah, no issues at all.
Okay. Chris?
Same, no questions.
Greg?
No questions, thank you.
Don?
No questions for me.
And Matt?
No questions.
Christine?
Nothing here, thank you.
Okay. I really don't. What's the intended start date?
March 2022.
March 2022. Okay. And again, the stuff that usually goes on at it's really done up to snuff. So there's very little stuff we ever got to do. Setbacks never come into play, and even given the facility at times, the material doesn't exactly affect us either. So, okay. Seeing none, no more discussion. Motion, please.
Zukowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission approves site and building plans submitted by Burns and McDonald Engineering Company Incorporated on behalf of We Energies for the proposed additions on the properties at 4801 East Oakwood Road and 11060 South Chicago Road, with the following condition: that all detailed, revised, and finalized plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications and construction and installation.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call. Beginning with me. Sorry about that. Blanked out there. Bukevich, aye.
Zukowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Clark, aye.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That will get us to item 8E, and that is review of a request by Gary Hintz, Oak Brook Center, to allow manufacturing and alteration of receivers by tenant on the property at 9555 South Howell Avenue. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a little unusual. We have a property here that is subject to a PUD from 1964. And as such, there is language within that PUD that contains a list of allowed uses on the property or on the properties that are affected by the PUD without prior Plan Commission approval. Anything outside of that list must come to the Plan Commission for approval. So in this case, even though this is part of a PUD and there's a conditional use permit on the property and it's zone B4, we do have a proposal that is not allowed within the PUD. The proposal, as stated, is manufacturing and alteration of firearm receivers for retail and distribution sales. That includes, as examples, etching, engraving, machining, packaging, surface finishing, sheet metal forming, welding, and assembly. And the machinery that was provided in the additional information that was emailed to the Plan Commission includes drill presses, hydraulic presses, and what is called a spot welder. So here's an example that was provided by the applicant for part alteration. What would be kind of the bare information would be on the left, and then the finishing would be kind of that darker and etched portion on the right. And here are some example images of what the machinery and equipment would be used in the process. So as noted in the Plan Commission report, we do have some concerns. There is still a lack of detail for the proposed uses. And when we say lack of detail, some of these things are kind of broad brush. We don't necessarily have any concerns for things like etching and engraving, packaging, those kinds of things. That's pretty much standard within the commercial property allowances. What we do have concerns for are the manufacturing uses. And the reason is we are in a B4 district. We're in a commercial district. This is not a combination commercial and manufacturing district as we have seen in other PUDs. So we are concerned about this turning into a manufacturing operation. There are no noise levels provided, although with the information on the kinds of machinery that's used, we have fewer concerns, but we still don't know exactly what the noise output would be. Obviously, these machines would have to be fully contained within the building. We don't have any hours of operation provided. Obviously, the noise ordinance would come into play here. With everything being operated inside of the building, probably not going to be an issue, but we want to make sure that those noise ordinances are complied with. We do not know the number of tenants that would be allowed to operate in accordance with this should it move forward. Is it one tenant? Is it multiple tenants? Is the entire building going to be allowed to move forward with these types of uses? Obviously, as a commercial property, we want to have some limitations on any kind of exceptions to what would be considered normal commercial operations. There was some information provided about waste products. That includes metal and spray coating. However, we do not have further information on how the spray coating is applied, what type of spray coating it is. Not so much concerning about the exact materials, but we do have a limitation on painting kinds and application of chemicals. That's really reserved for the manufacturing district. That is a bit of a concern. Disposal methods, while it was slightly mentioned, we do need to know whether or not there's going to be on-site storage, whether or not that spray coating includes any requirements by the fire department for storage and disposal, whether or not that requires any special kind of modification to the building to comply with drainage and things like that. Those are all questions that can be answered by the applicant who is here this evening, but we just didn't have that information provided as part of the application. So again, the conflict with the allowed uses in the B4 district are for the manufacturing district uses. And I've included some examples of what the manufacturing uses in the M1 district would be should these particular proposals be presented for an M1 district. So manufacturing is a general use allowed in the manufacturing district. Period. Machine shops, metal product manufacturing, fabrication and distribution, general packaging and welding, all of those items listed specifically as uses in the M1 district, not in the B4 district. So we do have two options. One is for concurrence with staff. Based on the concerns that we have, we could not fully support the use proposal. If you do wish to present a motion for approval, we do have several conditions for the Plan Commission to consider. A couple of them, though, we do need specific Plan Commission input and definition for, and that'll be based on the information provided by the applicant this evening. With that, I will turn it over to the applicant and the commission for the discussion.
Okay. Welcome. We will allow the applicant to speak first and maybe clear up some of the questions that weren't provided to staff. So,
yeah, my name is Gary Hintz. My home address is 10065 South McGraw Drive, Oak Creek.
And name one more time.
Gary Hintz, Hintz.
Gotcha.
I think on the application, when I talked to Doug, he wanted everything kind of listed so we would kind of cover everything. It's kind of getting all blown out of proportion. If you want to give me.
I will need your name and address as well if you're going to speak.
Well, I want give me the part you got. Basically, this is the part. Okay, you buy it as a flat piece like this. As soon as it gets bent, and it's just a little hydraulic press that we showed you that pushes down, bends this in two pieces. Now it becomes a firearm receiver, and the ATF we have to put etch a serial number on it. Basically, that's it. Most of the time it would get sold in this condition. If it does get coated, it would either be like a light oil spray or just a spray paint so that when it ships, it don't rust. I guess from that point, I put it on to you to ask me the questions because I'm not sure. I mean, as far as obviously it's all the press that makes this is smaller than this podium. The laser etcher we actually use in the liquor store to, like, if somebody wants a name etched on a bottle, we can put a little tag on there for them. So we have that anyway. That's why we were able to do this. And part of the area that we want to do it in is another company we have, which is called Beverage Equipment Company. We sell draft beer dispensing equipment. And obviously since COVID, that just about shut down for the last 2 years. So my son is kind of going to be taking over things, and this was just kind of a fill-in for us. So things pick up a little bit. As far as the manufacturing district, actually there were 4 pieces of property we're on, which was zoned as a unified plan development. A number of years back, one parcel of that, which is probably 300 feet away from us, was changed to M1. So the manufacturing, even though it's not our particular piece of property, backs up to the same houses. So it's really not like we're introducing something in the area that's going to bother anybody. All this would be done in a 10 by 10 office inside of our building. As far as hours operation, it would be probably 8 in the morning till 5 at night, when we're there. And we're right next door to other tenants, so we're not going to make noise that are going to affect the other tenants. Any questions, I guess?
Okay.
I can try to answer.
Christine, would you like to start us out?
No, I have no questions.
Okay.
I have no questions.
Dawn.
I have a question. Which building are we looking at? Are we in the strip mall?
Yes, the back building.
Okay.
Gary's Beer and Liquor.
Okay. So you're sharing it with other tenants?
Yes, there's a dentist, a hair salon, Georgie Porgy's restaurant.
And that's why we need to be really careful with the spraying and. Okay, that's all I have for right now.
Okay. Greg?
Do you own that strip mall?
Yes.
And have you spoken to all the other tenants?
Yes, they all know me real well. We do stuff for everybody.
So do they know that you're planning on this, and do they have any issues with it?
Yeah, they all know it's not a problem.
So I guess I don't know that I would have a huge concern. I don't know how much we can, I guess this would be a question for Carrie. How much can we limit what's actually being done? I mean, can it be specific pieces of equipment used for bending, no spraying of any type of paints, only oils or whatever they're specifically going to use, to ensure there's no hazardous sprays being sprayed where?
I mean, like you can see, it would not be a very big thing. I mean, probably like a floral shop or a hobby center would use more paint and spray than we would do,
It seems like a very contained kind of operation. I guess my concern is approving something manufacturing and having it going above the scope of what you're planning on doing.
And that was staff's concern. We would like to be as specific as possible so that we do not cross the line into a general manufacturing use in an area that would not necessarily be appropriate for general manufacturing. Yes, there's manufacturing properties in the area, but this is specifically for a commercial development. So as specific as we possibly can be to allow the applicant to perform the business operations that are requested if the Plan Commission approves, but we do need to be very specific about exactly what is going to be allowed.
Well, we do have a warehouse area in the back. There's another little building back there. It's 3,200 square feet. I mean, that's probably an area that we're going to designate off like an area inside there, because you have to designate an area because the ATF has to have the right to come in anytime they want and inspect you. And to be honest with you, there's actually multiple areas in Oak Creek that people are doing have this same license in their home. There's one right off of Putes and 15th that the fella has the same Class 7 license that he's applying for, and he's doing it out of his house. And right across the street from him, a guy has a Class 3 to sell firearms. So, I mean, it's not like we're going into full production here where we're going to have semis delivering stuff every day and shipping stuff out. I mean, it's a pretty small amount of
Okay, and then I mean, I guess I can be in support of it if we are able to get specific enough, and I'm not saying that you're looking to do anything more, but I mean, you never know of unintended consequences down the line. Somebody else might come along and say, oh, we can do manufacturing, and it just gets out of control. So if it's able to get specific enough and prove what you're actually doing there.
I think that's why we asked for it to be of receivers.
Okay.
You know, not that we're gonna be making rocket launchers and tanks and missiles, you know, I mean, it's just this particular little part. And another part of it is the laws are changing with firearms. So if you have a firearm that was probably made before like 1980, chances are it might not be registered, might not even have serial numbers. So when they change the laws, which you're talking about in the middle of next year, if you own that firearm, you automatically become a felon until you come in and get it registered. So we would be able at that point to laser etch a serial number on it, register a firearm for you. And we're just anticipating all this happening. So like I said, because we're slow, it's kind of a fill-in to be able to keep going.
And the laser etch and the hydraulic system, I mean, they're not overly loud?
No, it doesn't. The laser doesn't make any noise at all. It's probably quieter than a copy machine. And the press is a little hydraulic jack that's on a thing that just presses this down. It's not, you know, it's not electric even. So there's no noise involved at all.
Thank you.
Chris? I think that I have no objections. I would support this.
And Don?
Yeah, I don't have any general questions except for, you know, just relying on staff to put in whatever we need to put in so if things do get, you know, ratcheted up, that it's put in place, you know, that there's a line, I guess. Not the one to write that stuff. I'm sure I didn't read through all these conditions, but I guess if that's the main concern, except for these little asks like hours and you know, stuff like that. But yeah, I guess I'm okay with it as long as staff ends up being satisfied with what they're asking for. That's really all I got.
Okay, Fred?
Yeah, I'd like to know a little more about your manufacturing process. Is it just a one-man operation?
Basically, yeah, here's the one man.
One man. And what type of volume are we talking for a year? 50, 100,000?
Oh, I don't think it's going to be, I think if we see a couple thousand pieces a year, it's going to be a lot. You know, and I'd say the bigger part is going to be if people can come in and get their firearms registered that are, you know, not, so it'd be more just like walking into a Gander Mountain, basically. They have a gunsmith which has that license. You know, you walk in, say, here, I need to have this registered. You fill out all your paperwork. We laser etch the number on that the ATF gives us on the receiver. It gets recorded. Of course, then it has to be sent to the ATF to make sure that they can have it, that they're not a felon or whatever, and gets approval. And then we give them the firearm back and say, okay, you're good to go.
During this process, how long does it take just to make one piece, for example? You take
to make that piece?
Couple minutes, 5 minutes?
You mean total make it, or just, I'd say start to finish, probably an hour, you're saying, to make one piece?
Basically stamping in, then coating it, and then packaging.
Stamping, coating it, and then there's a little bracket that gets just spot welded with a little tabletop spot welder in place.
One-man operation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's no high production. I said that part gets bought, so, you know, we're not making the metal part of it or anything. It's just getting bent.
What you need to do?
No, like I said, the oilier it is, the better. So if it has residue on it, it just gets put in a package so it don't rust and shipped out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Chauncey?
I do have a couple questions. Carrie, can you go back to the slide where you were showing the main part? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a little different receiver, but basically you can see there's just a couple holes that get drilled in it in different spots. I don't know how to explain this. The government says that as long as it's, when you can buy the blank part as long as it's less than 80% finished. And then once it becomes finished the rest of the way, that's why you have to have the license to bring it up to that standard. That's where the drill press would come in, and that's just pretty simple. I'm sure you all know what a drill press is, and they're not real big.
So what I wanted to just better understand, if you could go back to that slide, Carrie. So you showed a piece, a plate to us.
That piece, yeah. I don't have one of them here to show you.
So I just want to understand, when you say manufacturing, what that actually involves. So do you receive the plates? Do you have to cut out the plates? If you could just give me more information from beginning to end.
The plate comes, it's all, I can show you this. It's already all cut out where everything has to be. Oh, I'm sorry. It's all cut out where everything has to be already.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it gets two bends to make this into like a U shape, and then it's finished. And other than a little piece of rail that gets spot welded onto here once it's located in the spot.
Okay, so you add bends to it. What else do you do?
Just spot weld two little.
Oh, the spot weld.
These little pieces that are in here.
Okay.
That gets put on there.
Okay. And it looks like there's a change in color here. So is there paint included?
It's that one is just showing a finished one. I mean, chances are we'd never really paint them. Like I said, it would just be that one. Nothing would need to get done to because that's actually aluminum. This one is steel, so it just gets coating so it don't rust. Which can be vegetable oil, anything just so it don't rust.
Okay. And what else happens after? So you receive the plate, you add the bends, you're spot welding a couple items.
We laser etch a serial number on it.
The etching.
And it gets registered then with the ATF, and then it's sold to a customer.
Okay, because what I'm trying to understand is the manufacturing part to this ask for this item. So I'm trying to understand what you're considering the manufacturing part of this.
Well, I think that was kind of like what the planning commissioner, what Doug pointed it to, because that's the closest thing it is manufacturing, I guess.
It's probably being defined by manufacturing because processes such as welding and bending are taking place in it.
Can you go back to that slide, Carrie? That may help me, Mayor. Is that what you were referring to, the M1 slide?
Yeah. So, I mean, it ain't assembly. Assembly, let's just say assembly would be stapling a flag to a stick to really simplify. This is actually more of a process of manufacturing where you're actually making that product. Maybe the assembly of that wasn't a good example, but maybe the assembly is like taking a rod and putting two nuts on it for whatever it might be and tying a rope to it. That might be assembly. The parts are pre-made. Nothing's being made, just being put together. That would be assembly.
Right.
This is actually somewhat taking a raw material and making it into a product.
Which is manufacturing, correct?
At least in my eyes.
Okay. Because I'm just trying to understand the M1 versus the B4. So the M1 would incorporate the welding and transitioning material, because that's why you're calling it manufacturing. Transitioning.
It currently does now, and this is a B4 district. So now we're really, we have direct areas for what they'd like to do. They're kind of looking for a variance because it's so light. Okay, but yet they own the facility, so they don't want to go to a light manufacturing facility. Or
when I talked to Doug, he said they kind of allow retail business if it's something small that they put together and sell in their store to allow it. Say a jeweler might be welding rings together and
correct, or take a trophy shop. They may be doing that as well, engraving and etching and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's even, I seen, I think Stromowski Heating is owned the same as we are, and he's doing sheet metal ductwork for his stuff in the back of his shop. So, I mean, it's kind of
Be a
all
good
the same.
example. I don't know how he's zoned, but
I think that's what it showed up. But like I said, people are doing this out of their house, and it's not like the neighbors are calling because you're, banging the walls in the middle of the night.
I get it, but if we did find that out, we'd be all over them too. So it's a whole nother subject. They'd be here too. So, go ahead, Josie. I kind of took the floor from you.
Yeah, so I was just trying to understand the manufacturing part. So once again, it wouldn't be any more than 1,000 parts, way less than 1,000 parts per year?
Yeah, I would
Also?
say yes, yeah.
Okay. And would this be the only item that is manufactured? The one piece that you have, do you have multiple or different plates for different types of, for lack of a better term, instruments? Or is it just the one?
Well, there's this and that one that was shown on the pictures for a different type. That's the only thing we're planning on right now, because it's simple enough to do and you can buy the parts at the 80% level already. So we don't have to go out and, I mean, if anything else, it would be done. It's only, a lot of stuff can be done by local manufacturing companies, but they can't do it past that point because then you need the special license. So, we could have all the stuff made somewhere else to a certain point and then just finish it up. So,
And then you also identified that there's a building in the back that you can actually complete the activity. So is that the plan? You said?
Yeah, we have a warehouse that we just store parts in for our beverage industry. And actually, we even put, busy summers, we might store, we keep some pallets of beer and stuff in there too. So.
And the reason
it's
I
just a
asked.
warehouse space.
Oh, please repeat your last comment.
I'm sorry.
Please repeat your last comment. I didn't hear it.
Well, we the warehouse in the back, we store different parts and, we're also a beverage equipment company as a parts distributor for a large manufacturer of coolers. So we pack and ship all little parts and pieces out. And we do a lot of that. If we get pallets of stuff in, it gets put in the warehouse until we break it down and put it on the parts bins before it gets shipped out.
So 210.
And with the warehouse that you're looking to complete this operation, you also said that ATF will come by for an inspection?
Yeah, they can come anytime they deem, so they can surprise you and knock on the door anytime and come in. But then they have to approve the spot we're gonna do because we have to have a safe. Because once they get made in the receiver, they have to go in the safe. So they gotta come and inspect to make sure the safe we have is adequate, what they want for it. And we have to follow all the ATF guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else before I jump out there? Okay, real quick, some of the questions Carrie had up there, if you go back one slide, Carrie, and I'll have you come back to this one. I guess you could probably stay there. We'll go with hours. Gary, you said about 8 to 5 on this.
Yeah, that's our normal business hours, so.
That's probably not a deal. And again, most of the commissioners are feeling that this probably can fit in some way, shape, or form. So, lack of detail for the proposed uses. And I think that's where we really get into it because we start to say, okay, you can weld, use a hydraulic press, you can have a drill press, this, that, and the other thing. So at some given point, this doesn't work out very well. And this is another very weird example, but so you start taking half barrels and cutting them in half and making decorative planters.
Making chairs out of them?
Yeah, whatever.
He doesn't have much.
So all of a sudden we get into a manufacturing phase that way because it's just M1 and we just blanketed it regardless of what product it is. I mean, we're kind of focused on the product here. It's more about, in my eyes, the process that's going on here. So the noise levels provided, I don't think we'd want to see exceed decibels in a B4 area. And I'm throwing this out there because I thought these are staff concerns as listed. No info on the number of tenants allowed for operations. So is that meaning within that one storage building, Because at first I thought we were talking about the main store where the liquor store is in Georgie Porgy's. This building actually sits behind it to the south, correct?
Right, and we have to find out from the ATF if it's okay to have a little office in the main building and a little spot in the
Okay,
outside
otherwise
building,
you
or if
need
it
a
has to be
separate
together.
isolated thing.
Right.
It's gotta be locked up, much like a liquor store.
I mean, he was approved by the ATF to the point of this, so, once we get to that point.
I think the waste product, I mean, you're gonna have some metal chips just from the drilling and, you know, you're gonna mess up a few pieces.
I mean, that's all stuff that goes in recycle bin with tin
In a
cans.
recycle bin.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't think there's a ton going on. The spray coatings, whether it's oil, powder coat, or whatever you're doing. I know our assistant chief had to leave. I would think we would want to require some kind of hazmat thing as per fire code to at least store that stuff. And I know there's probably people storing spray paint and all sorts of gunky stuff on top of their furnace at home. But if we can avoid that through this process, I think that it's staff to address that way.
You're probably talking if it is spray paint and it would be a can or two at a, you know, I mean, it would last for a lot of.
I get it, but then the deal's better to get 100 cans.
No spray paint.
Next thing you know, we got a big hazmat deal going on. So I think we do have to pay attention to that. As far as the machines go, you know, I mean, we've seen pictures of spot welders, drill presses, and a hydraulic press. You know, I think maybe we could regulate that by size, quite frankly, and number. So if all of a sudden 1,000 grows to 10,000, you go, holy cow, I can't keep up. I got to get 3 more spot welders in here. You start to become something. So I think we should limit the number of machines that are in there, and maybe the motors by horsepower, or how would they do the amp rating on the welders, whatever size. We'd have to limit that. We could talk to inspection through that as to what you need. And again, I don't want to rewrite the code here. I'm really going on the fly, but I'm just giving staff some direction because I thought that's what you asked for. Or am I just way out in left field there?
No, the staff does need specific direction on exactly what to do here, but to be perfectly honest, with everything that still has some question about it or needs to be wordsmithed, I'm not entirely confident that I can provide conditions of approval to address everything tonight.
If you were, you'd be amazing, and you should be at a way higher level or in a whole nother job.
I've got some, but I'm not sure I'd have all.
So, you know, I'm just throwing it out there, Carrie, because I know it's a little different. Gary, I don't mean to hold you up by any way, shape, or form, but if we blanket it here, this affects the entire city, everything we do. The next thing we know, over at Smiles here in the strip mall, you know, we got a guy making oil filters or something. So just, Carrie, don't freak out. There's no oil filters going on there. I'm just doing bad examples tonight. So anyways, I mean, we'd really like to get it right with manufacturing. Obviously, you know, you're going to do some packaging and stuff. I don't see where, like I say, if we keep the noise levels where it's at, exhaust wise with spot welding, I'm not an expert on that, but if we need to get an exhaust fan system, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little 110 volt
plug in.
Yeah,
I know, guys.
There's like 2 little spots you don't even do a microphone.
Gary, hold a microphone.
I mean, it's 110 volt spot welder. There's 2 little spots. It's done. There's really no fumes or.
I get it. This really ain't a take at what you're trying to do. What I'm trying to do is.
I get to where you're coming from.
The whole thing.
Did the city ever think about? I know other communities kind of have like M1 districts, and then they have like a light duty.
But we do have a light manufacturing, and there are certain areas where you can do that. And this is exactly what it's set up for, quite frankly. But again, you know, that's probably if this young man was starting from scratch and wanted to rent or buy that place. In this, we're kind of reworking a B4 area to fit what we zoned LM1, correct?
Plus LM1 wouldn't necessarily allow you to have the retail uses that are in the rest of the building. So I see where you're coming from. We're just trying to craft this so that you are allowed to do what you're asking for without crossing over into an M1 district and thus being in conflict with our code. So
we tried to take that M1 and B4 blend it as best we could for something like this. And no matter what we do, we're never gonna completely get every situation, and obviously, you're one of them.
Right.
So that's why we're having a little bit of a struggle here, because we just don't wanna blow wide open. You know, and you're correct, we do have people that are welding or repairing cars within their house, and they're just, hey, I'm just doing it on the side, and it turns into something, and then our compliance officer has to get involved, so.
Right. And so we're right next door to the M1 manufacturing building that was zoned the same as we were not long ago, so.
Oh, I know, I get it.
It's not.
You know, the neighbors are sitting next to it too, and then they go, hey, I built a big house here, but I'm on top of train. Can you move the train? Can you?
Right, well, that already happened because the manufacturing, you know, is there already, so.
So I kind of got that. Deliveries are probably UPS shipped, I would think. Yeah, stuff like that. So
I mean, it's gonna be way less than what we even have in a liquor store, because a liquor store, we have trucks delivering all the time.
I would think so. I guess the one other thing, Carrie, is do we put a sunset, or is this gonna be like a conditional use for a time period, or is this go with the property till the end of time?
The use approval is simply for the use. Now, we can attach conditions, but as far as the sunset is concerned, really, it's going to be if there's a violation of the conditions for this, because it's not a conditional use permit, it's a use approval. That's why these PUD documents from the 60s are a little bit tricky to get involved with, because we don't really have use approval as a category anymore. It is a conditional use. So this is something that we're having to kind of address from the 60s. It's a different kind of mentality that was, you know.
So if the use change, the approval would go away. So in my bad example, if he started making furniture out of half barrels instead of these receivers,
that would not, well, depending on what the language is in the PUD, that would be something that would be either a violation or, you know, we'd have to take a look at it further, but I see where you're coming from. Basically, if there was a violation of the specific terms of the allowed use, then there would be a violation that would be pursued. So in other words, this is basically saying we're going to incorporate this exact specific thing into what is allowed within the PUD right now. Okay, so if we limit it to one, they can only have one. If they have two, they're in violation. But I don't see a way to put a sunset on an allowed use.
You have to limit square foot of the space.
You can put limitations.
I'm getting into conditions and restrictions.
You're getting into conditions that we can incorporate as part of the allowed use. Yes, those are all things that we'll need to have if you're going to incorporate those. I did have a clarification question for the spray coating. Now, we heard that it was either going to be something like, you know, akin to oil or something like that, and then we heard spray paint. Is it both, or is it one?
He said we're not going to be doing paint. It would just be like a vegetable oil.
Okay, so we don't need to do spray coating. It would just be application of a non-aerosol or a non-spray material.
Harry, I think it would help, because we've heard that, to explain what you mean by it's just going to be oil. Like, explain exactly. Like give everyone an idea.
It would be most likely vegetable oil, like Georgie
oil.
Porter uses in his fryer. It's just something so it doesn't rust. So it would be in like a mist bottle. You would just mist it on and you're done.
Okay, so yeah, you just mist it on, wipe it on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's what those are the kind of little details I think.
Almost like a WD-40.
Right.
Yeah. But vegetable oil.
Okay.
I mean, is it, and this is just way out there, but it's like with the separate building we have, can you make a special use just for a building on that property?
I am the wrong guy to ask. That's this lady.
I don't think we would limit it to the building per se. I think we could limit to the square footage. So if you put it in the outbuilding or if you put it in the commercial building, it's not really going to make much of a difference because you're still on the property. It's just a matter of how much space can you occupy with the use.
I would defer to the experts on that one, you know. And again, not trying to really be difficult. happens all the time. We go through this and then wham, it's like a rash. We get quite a few of them. So fortunately, you're the first one through on this one. But I understand where you're going with it, and it's pretty harmless.
Yeah, and I mean, and we're not gonna, I own the building, I have the tenants in the building, and they're not gonna be happy if there's noise, so I mean, they're just.
No, I get that.
Anything, you know.
I truly do. I just wanna, as we're going through the city and we're trying to redo our ordinances and we can never get it 100%. We do the best we can, and then a situation comes up and we're like, ooh, where'd that come from? So. Okay, other than that, just based on my notes, everybody else kind of covered everything else. And you're just making these receivers, you're not coming in, you're not tapping barrels for scopes, anything like that, doing gunsmithing?
No,
nothing like that, So, re-rifling a barrel, lathes, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's way beyond the.
So I think we could be specific to the equipment they're using, and I think they were pretty upfront about that. Spot welder, hydraulic press, drill press, and for heavy duty about anything going on there. I've been in enough manufacturing facilities, and I get it. For that little piece of tin, it ain't going to take much. It's probably not tin, whatever it is, it ain't going to take much to bend it. So,
would it be incorrect to say that these are consumer grade pieces of machinery?
Yeah, it's not, you can buy it.
No, I don't want to say commercial.
Consumer.
Because I don't want to give the impression that we're going to be allowing, when we say commercial, I know what we're all thinking, but industrial type machinery, something that's small scale, but I don't want to have to worry about horsepower or size or things like that.
This is, I guess you'd be right in saying it. It's kind of residential use.
Yeah, I mean, most
Consumer
people
grade?
probably have them in, I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people have them in their garage already. I mean.
Yeah, you're right. This isn't anything, quite frankly, I don't know if you could pick this up at a Menards or a Lowe's, but again, it's not, this ain't like AC Delco going on here.
We just want to make sure that we're very clear that when we say drill press, we don't mean a gigantic drill press.
Correct. That's why I kind of went by horsepower, but I could be wrong. I think, speaking to somebody such as our electrical inspector or our building inspector might shed some better light on what I'm trying to say here, because I am just killing it here with these crappy examples I'm putting out.
So I think we're good with the etching and engraving.
Okay.
I think instead of necessarily saying machining, we could still say machining, but I would say it would include drilling, boring, turning, forming, and stamping of previously prepared typical commercial parts or products for use on previously prepared typical commercial parts or products, utilizing these specific consumer grade pieces of machinery, drill press, hydraulic press, spot welder.
Don't know if you'd need stamping, and just because of my background of where I've come from through factories, I think of stamping machines as like
that's something
6-8 ton machines are
Okay.
forming.
So forming, we'll say
the piece
forming.
they showed us is actually stamped from a piece of steel.
Okay, so we'll take out
Right.
stamping and we'll just have forming in there. Okay.
That probably actually isn't even stamped, it's probably just pressed out.
But
The
quick
laser cut
question,
and pressed.
What's the tool that forms it?
Hydraulic press. That would.
What's in the picture right there?
The middle one.
The middle one.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Hydraulic press?
Yeah, it's basically a little hydraulic jack, like you would jack up your car, that goes between there, and that just is what forces it
Takes a
together.
piece of steel and forces it to bend.
Okay. So Mayor, you were saying to use hydraulic press versus?
No, I just.
Machining, I'm kind of sorry to interrupt.
No, she's good.
I'm trying to figure out how to kind of define what we mean by machining for this particular use. So in 3B, machining would then be defined as drilling, boring, turning, or forming previously prepared typical commercial parts or products for use on or with previously prepared typical commercial parts or products, utilizing consumer grade, one each, drill press, hydraulic press, spot welder. That would be the definition that we would include for machining. We would also excludes general manufacturing and metal fabrication and sale of separate components.
Just to really throw you off, any grinding going on? I mean, you got a burr or anything like that?
No, I mean, if there would be any little cleanup, it would be like with a Dremel tool or something like that.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
So etching and engraving, I think we're pretty good with the definition that we have there, although I'll probably just make it a little bit cleaner with what we've learned here tonight. Engraving of the previously approved or previously prepared is what we're saying. Consumer grade parts, packaging of the parts, surface finishing of the parts with the application of a coating in conformance with all fire department and inspection approvals and requirements. That's something that I'd have to get a little bit more detail on from those specific departments.
Proper storage of
and storage.
Materials or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Just to be clear with fire, I'm sure they're going to do their due diligence and inspect anyways, but.
Yeah, they're there 3 times a year looking at stuff anyhow.
It might be easier up front if they tell you, hey, pick up a cabinet at Granger. And
actually, we have one of them in the house anyway.
We'd also specify hours of operation, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., because that's what was requested. For one tenant, which we have listed in here, do you want to limit the size of the space? 1,500 square feet, is that sufficient? 2,000 square feet?
Bigger than my house.
Said this is being done probably in like a 10 by 10 office.
Yeah, probably about that. So, I mean, we might have some more packaging stuff, so 1,500 square feet's more than adequate.
Not to exceed 15.
Not to exceed?
Should that include all the storage too?
That would include everything.
Does that include all your storage?
Yeah, there's really not.
Okay.
It would, as part of our definition, include all parts of the operation, which would include storage.
Okay.
So not to exceed 1,500 square feet. We're not going to specify which building it has to be in, just no more than 1,500 square feet. All operations, interior. And I think everything else we have on here, just possibly some minor wordsmithing, and then under 7, I will specify that there are no new buildings associated with this. So it's all, anything that's on site right now is what can be utilized, not to exceed 1,500 square feet thereof. So those are the types of things that would be included in the conditions and restrictions, but they need some wordsmithing.
Yeah, they do. And I don't want to, Gary, I don't want to hold you up, but I don't want to get this wrong either. And I don't want to stress staff either to make them do this on the fly. And then when it isn't correct, the finger pointing always goes downhill and it's always to them. So, I think, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I have something to say. I know what staff's trying to do. They're protecting the city, they're protecting everything, and I know what you're trying to do, and you got a little workshop going, and that's about it. If you're really concerned about it blowing up, I think Dan was on a little something, I know we can sit here all day and talk about horsepower and all that, but really what I would talk to, he's talked to, this is what people do, some people are doing this in their homes. We'll keep it to at home as far as any kind of electrical demands. If they're 120 volt, which is what all your outlets are at home, you're plugging in something, then specify no piece of machine, you'll wordsmith it better than me, will go beyond 124 volt demand, or 120 volt or 110 volt demand.
Well, you'd have to make it whatever, our little laser thing is actually 220.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then, I don't know what the service is on that building, but it's single 208, 120 volts. But basically, what people would be using their home as far as demand on an electrical. That way, they can't make any. They wouldn't be able to start putting in, I don't know if there's a 3-phase service there, like multiple phase outlets, and which then you're getting into industrial size machinery, that kind of thing. I think that would really limit what they can add. Now, could they add a multiple 120 volts? Sure, I guess. But if you're worried about a big operation, they'll need bigger demands. And I think if you limit that
You're going to limit. Limiting, I mean, actually, my compressors in the store are 35, 40 horsepower, three-phase. So I mean, the electric usage is.
I'm just looking at ways if you're worried about, becoming more of a manufacturing. I understand what you're saying, that's specific to what you're doing in the store. This would be specific.
Well, I'm just saying so that it doesn't cover all of a sudden you come back and say, wait, you can't have that compressor. It's too big.
You're talking about the liquor store?
Yeah.
This goes with the property. It doesn't go just to the.
Okay.
But it's specific for the use. And that's, I hear where you're coming from, Don. But we are going to be getting into, well, what about this piece of equipment? What about this, which is ancillary? What about this? What about this? And then we're going to be back here again. So I'd like to just tighten it up as close as we can. If we say commercial or not commercial, consumer grade products for drill press, hydraulic press, spot welder, anything outside of that, if he wants to get a Dremel from Home Depot, I'm not going to put a Dremel in here. That's not something I'm concerned about. It's the larger pieces of equipment. And if it goes to above 120 volts, I don't want to have him come back here and say, well, now I've got X amount. So I'm trying to be specific, but general enough to get at what we're trying to do here.
I hear you. That's the trick though, right? Or isn't that what we're stressing over here?
Well, I mean, if you just kind of say this is what it's going to be, I mean, it's not like, all of a sudden this gun's going to be this big and we need to have a big machine.
I have no doubt that what you're trying to do is, or what you're telling us you're going to do is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help this move along on their side.
Christine?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, sorry, Don.
Yes, I actually have a concern with everything happening here. We're sitting trying to twist words to fit what you need. At least that's what I'm hearing here. Words wide to satisfy the coding or how it's being manufactured versus light industry versus retail. If you are, I'm not saying that how we should Carrie changed the words to be exact, to be what you're going to do. Actually, we're twisting the words to be what you need it to be done. That is not what, in my opinion, that's not what we're supposed to be here doing. Because if this is being zoned for commercial, that's what it should be. That's what it should stay as. You have Georgie Porgy there. You have charcoal grill next to you. Yes, maybe yours is small, no noise, no hazard material, no all of that. But your visitors, your delivery trucks, all of that will have an impact. Maybe you don't see it from the outside, but what you're looking at is inside your shop. But outside, it will have an impact. Also, you have residents behind your shop.
No.
If you look at the aerial map.
Oh, the residents, yeah, yes, but the residents, if you look at the M1 manufacturing, that's behind the same subdivision. I mean, that's not really
still
an issue here.
The impact that I am seeing is outside your shop. That's going to drag all of those visitors to your shop.
Well, and I'm sure if people would complain, you would hear about it, it would come back to me.
We're not going to sit and wait for people to complain. That's why we're here, to make sure that we are exposing their voices. I'm not going to wait for someone to complain for me to go fix something. We're just trying to be proactive and fix it right away. Well, that's what the zoning is for.
But the delivery trucks and the pallet jacks they deliver with are going to be way more noise than, I mean, even our coolers running probably make way more noise than what this is ever going to make. I mean, it's not.
I'm not talking about noise. I'm just not talking about that. You already have some delivery trucks for your liquor store, don't you?
No, we don't deliver.
Okay.
I mean, we get deliveries in, but we don't deliver out.
Okay, you're right. So you have people coming in with pallets to trucks, to the charcoal grill, to Georgie Porgy. So you have plenty of them already coming. So you're going to be increasing maybe 5%, 10%. There is an increase there. So it's not what's being zoned for. The adjacent commercial, everything around it, it's gonna be odd.
Well, most of his delivery is coming by UPS. So he's not coming in with semi pallets full of these things. And again, that's why we're crafting it based on square footage and with 3 machines or what at the one machine of each version of what he's using. He very much can't become a a main manufacturer of this. He'd find, if his demand outgrew this, he'd have to go to an M1 manufacturing district.
Which is true. However, it's zoned today for commercial based on the surrounding businesses. Right?
It's based on the use of what that tenant mall is. But again, okay, but again, you're, in a sense, you're starting to split hairs. So if you have a trophy shop and you're starting to do these plaques, and you're drawing out the wood and you're mounting them brass plaques and you're engraving them and you're using lacquer to select and to do that, and you got a wood thing to trim them out, you're essentially doing the same thing.
Yes.
Those things are everywhere. There's trophy shops within South Milwaukee.
I mean, when you look at all different businesses, like even like a floral shop, they spray paint or, clear coat their flowers when they're done with them. I mean, everybody's doing stuff like that. And we're actually in the zoning where it's allowed for a sporting goods store. So we had a sporting goods store, you could have this license for a gunsmith to be in the sporting goods store, which is in many places.
If that was a hardware store, I think it would be more offensive. If you look at the product they carry, the services they can do.
Well, Oak Creek Plumbing used to be in by us, and they used to thread pipe in the back, and and it didn't bother anybody back then.
Yeah, that's true too.
I said the grinding keys would probably create more noise than these guys are going to make.
Anyways, we're going to have a vote and we'll get our say so on it. I mean, we are getting kind of long and we are getting kind of nitpicky. And again, I don't want to put Carrie on the spot. They have to come up with the perfect language for this. Unfortunately, I think we will be back here again, in my opinion, Gary. I wish we could have it perfect, but I just don't think our staff has had enough input. And I'm gonna ask Carrie what else she needs input on so we can kind of keep moving ahead here.
All right, so I think we're good with etching and engraving, and I can put on, just clarifying language regarding the previously prepared commercial parts and products, just so that we're all clear. Machining would be drilling, boring, forming, turning of those previously approved commercial parts, utilizing those specific consumer grade machines, equipment, packaging of those previously prepared parts, surfacing of those previously prepared parts with the application of a coating in conformance with the language that I need to get from the fire department and from the inspection department. We don't need to necessarily worry about ventilation as long as it's not, anything other than consumer products that are going to be used. Sheet metal forming using those specific consumer grade machines of previously prepared products, consumer grade or commercial products. Welding, I think we're okay with using the consumer grade welding equipment. And then assembly is just general assembly, so we're not necessarily concerned with that. We have the requirement for performance standards, hours of operation 8 to 5, all activities conducted within a building not to exceed 1,500 square feet, including storage. We have compliance with the noise ordinance, all waste and recycled materials disposed of in conformance with all applicable local, state, and federal laws, no on-site storage of flammable or hazardous materials. And then as part of the activities fully contained within a building, I'll just reword that so that it's within a building contained on the property, not a new building, not to exceed 1,500 square feet. Did we get everything? Oh, you're not going to have any signs on this, are you?
No.
Okay. No signs.
Does it specifically outline that this is for the manufacturing and alteration of firearm receivers?
Yes, that'll be in here.
Okay. So if they wanted to expand, not saying they absolutely couldn't, but they would have to come back here for other approvals, correct?
Right. So this is specifically for exactly what they want to do.
Okay.
I hate to bring up one more point, but if you're going to have a commercial storefront, if people are going to come in with their firearms in the future, maybe signage, an entrance, all those kind of things should be thought of.
I don't think we'd want to even advertise it as that, just because this opens up for a chance of somebody knowing, okay, let's break in there or whatever. I mean, we would just run it out of our existing business is what it would be.
Okay. So once again, Carrie, you're gonna need time to craft that, correct?
Yep.
Unfortunately, Gary, this is our last meeting of the year, correct?
So we're looking at January 11th.
11th.
Yep.
Are you gonna be here January 11th? Okay, I
No,
wanna
I'm
check
not.
on a quorum because
I'm not.
I will not be here January 11th
I'm
myself.
not either.
Okay.
I'll be here. So I just want to do a quick check of quorum because with the holidays, I know people are traveling. So I'm gone, Christine's gone,
Dawn is gone.
and Dawn is gone. It's 3.
So that would 2,
Make
4,
it.
5, 6, 7, or 6. Yep, that's fine.
But if anybody, unfortunately would feel ill or something, keep an eye on that, Carrie. Just a warning.
I have a question.
Yes.
Before Carrie spent the time to put all of this together, do we want to make like a kind of vote to see where we are coming from?
We really can't do that. We just vote on the action that's on the agenda, either in the affirmative or as written, and then it's a no vote. And then Carrie goes back to work on it and brings it back to this council on the 11th, or this commission on the 11th.
If the motion is to hold.
Okay, well, no, I think we voted down. We don't hold.
No, to bring it back on the 11th, it would be a motion to hold.
Oh, then it would be a motion to hold. Okay, then I stand corrected. Yeah, it would be a motion to hold. And then we get all the words and then we rehash this all again.
And then at the 11th is when you
With
cast
far
the
more
deciding vote.
information. And again, I understand you guys want to get moving as quick as possible and I wish we could accommodate you. But honestly, this group really does the heavy lifting and this is where it all gets hashed out. Unfortunately, this is where the sausage gets made, so they say, and then comes into council, you get a few questions.
No, it's
And
been,
they hash it out too.
we would just started at the beginning of
council.
the year, so.
So, okay.
One additional item,
Yes.
Carrie, or should we also identify just one employee for this operation?
I think limiting it to one tenant is probably sufficient. I don't know if he has a son, but if he has a son or a daughter who wants to help out dad in the shop one day, I'm not going to say, you can't do that.
Okay.
Or, niece, nephew, whatever. I think limiting it to one tenant is sufficient, especially if you're going to be using just those consumer grade machines. If you have 3 people and they're all on separate machines doing that, I don't think that's an issue. Just one tenant.
Okay, anything else before we ask for a motion to hold? Okay, seeing none, motion, please.
Guzekowski makes motion to hold item 8E until January 11th, did you say?
If you hold it to January 11th, it must be reviewed at the January 11th meeting.
A future date?
You can just do a motion to hold. You don't have to specify a date.
Okay. Motion to hold.
Lippert seconds.
Roll call, starting with you, Chris.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Lippert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Woman, aye.
Bill, aye.
Clark, aye. David, aye. Okay, sorry, Gary. This point, yes, I mean, we are doing this specific and we'll get it right. Like I say, there's probably incidents all over this city where there's far more going on in residential neighborhoods as well as commercials, so.
The more specific and detailed we get, the better clarity it is for the applicant and for staff and for anybody who might have a question about what they're doing.
I would agree with you 100%. Thank you.
Okay. Merry Christmas.
Where were we? That was 8E. Holy cow. 8F, plan review, master development plan submitted by the city of Oak Creek and Grave for the Drexel Avenue Streetscape project.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We did have a conceptual plan that was brought forward at the September 28th meeting, got some input. We have our consultants from Grafe representing the project here tonight. What we are asking for is approval in concept of the master development plan, and this would also have to go before the Common Council because it is a, what's the word I'm looking for? Separate budget. Capital improvement. That's what it is, sorry. What we are asking for then is, like I said, a master development plan approval in concept. Structures for this particular proposal would be brought back to the Plan Commission at a later date once they are finalized. And with that, I am actually going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Craig from Grafe.
Good evening, everyone. Craig Huebner with Grafe, 275 West Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee. Along with me is my colleague, Joe Pepitone. Realizing I do a lot of these presentations, I want to be respectful of everyone's time too. I'm willing to be as detailed or not as detailed as desired by the Plan Commission. Just a high-level summary, this is conceptual plan. The point of this document is for the city to have a tool to move forward with design development and implementation, have discussions on budgets, capital improvements, where funding is coming from. All that is laid out in this plan. As far as major changes since the last plan, it's more refined on the specific recommendations of streetscape elements. For example, what types of walls, what types of trees, what types of site amenities like benches, so on and so forth. So with that, I guess I would ask, would you like me to kind of go quickly through every single slide or just be here to answer specific questions that you would have, Mr. Chair?
Why don't you go through it? You know it best, and you might eliminate some questions in your presentation.
Perfect. I'll do the expedited version and we can go from there. Thank you. So the boundaries we're looking again from IKEA Way to Howell. Of note, this is working in tandem with a roadway reconstruction, or not reconstruction, but project right now. So the key thing with our streetscape work is we're working within the confines of that roadway project. So there's no change in lane configuration or new bump outs, things like that you would sometimes see with a streetscape project. We're really focused only within the curb space of the right of way, working with those conditions. As far as the approach, we're really looking at how to identify from the outside community that you're arriving in Oak Creek. So our approach is looking at using similar design palettes of your Lake Vista Park and other iconic developments like your Drexel Town Square and other projects along Drexel Avenue. Broken up kind of three main areas, each that have a slightly different streetscape component, but there are three different areas of the corridor itself that have different applications. The main treatments that you do see are focused within the medians themselves, different widths, the intersections, and then on the exterior between the right-of-way and the curb areas. Next slide. Yep. So conceptual treatment, these are just inspiration photos. So again, we're focused on the medians, what could happen within those. One element that we looked at, the next slide, shows the railroad underpass, and our recommendation actually, while we looked at different more intense lighting solutions, the recommendation actually is to focus more on streetscape landscape elements flanking the two sides and less of a specific intervention that would be substantial here. But we do give recommendations should the city want to move forward with more artistic murals or lighting, that could be something developed down the line. Different gateway signage is a key component. These are just precedent examples. We'll show real renderings later on. And then sculptural elements as well. These are just precedent examples. We'll show some examples of what we're proposing. Going into the schematic design, the next several slides are just the plan views. Again, we're focused primarily, the big impact that you're going to see is in the medians and substantial landscape plantings, along with some earthwork with walls, stone walls or Corten walls that we're proposing as part of this development throughout the corridor. I think it'll be a very welcoming change, obviously, than what consists right now. When you see within the medians is really going to be a bold statement just with the landscaping alone of what you would see. Here's a typical section of your narrower medians where there's no walls proposed. This would just be low-level planting, contrast to the large medians, which again have the proposed earthwork, planted berms, and then walls on one side, depending on what side you're driving on the corridor. You can see the different material play between stone and core 10. We've proposed different plant materials that are really lower maintenance from a manicured turf versus low grasses, low maintenance grasses that don't require as much maintenance. So we can answer any questions on the maintenance side of things as well. Here again is just a different perspective of showing these groupings of aspen trees. Again, these quaking aspens were selected specifically for their species type. This corridor is all about movement and not only traffic, but just arrival in a sense of arrival into the city. So these quaking aspens, grouping of aspens reflect that approach for the corridor. Branding and signage is all potential and desirable for this corridor, so you can see different examples in these renderings. The next several slides, just as far as this final deliverable, again, like I mentioned, goes into specific detail on the selection of trees, the types of plant beds and ground cover that we're proposing. The site amenities, again, are reflective of your adjacent developments happening in Drexel Town Square and other developments that would have a similar palette, so nothing out of the norm that requires specialty ordering should any damage occur. We are proposing just to retain your existing lighting, feeling like we have enough streetscape and landscape elements to really make the largest impact. But if the city would desire to move forward with other more decorative poles, that's an option as well. Lighting, you heard a lot of different recommendations for different options for interactive lighting, and that is still something that's possible for this corridor. What our recommendation is including, though, is very specific just to the wall lighting that you would see along the entire corridor, as well as the different monument elements where we've incorporated illuminated beacons or different elements that would be visible throughout the corridor. We still have the movement of light or programmable light that would be possible with both those recommended lighting solutions, but it's not some other alternatives where we had more of interactive touch points with pedestrians or specific sculptures that are illuminated in different ways. All those could be options, but it's not in the core recommendation for part of this plan. The next several slides just show our proposed monument elements. You can see they're split up into three categories: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary monument elements, as you can see in these renderings, are really meant as a sense of arrival and branding opportunity. So what these allow for at different points along the corridor is you would see these and your eye would be drawn to them as you continue to drive along the corridor. We've proposed these in different groupings so that they have a little bit more of a pop along the corridor. Secondary monuments are both for wayfinding and again would have an internally illuminated element for a consistent theme. And then the tertiary elements are more of a request as part of the proposal to look citywide. Are these elements that could be incorporated throughout the city for more of your street labels, wayfinding elements. Sculptures that were pursued, because this is working with your art community, these are conceptual in nature, but this would require interaction with local artists to try to find different ways that you could incorporate art either within right-of-way or actually within private property as well. Implementation, as I mentioned, the next steps is really design development, understanding budgets and where funding is coming from, and specifically identifying which are the core elements that you do want to include as part of the Streetscape project. With these those final renderings, and this is the last slide, you can kind of see specifically with the railroad bridge, the point of including landscaping and these primary elements is really that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at this railroad bridge anymore, which is so visible right now just because there's nothing. So that was kind of our intent of not having a major application to the railroad structure itself, which would require additional conversations and cooperation with the railroad ownership. But it is still something that could be discussed if it's desired by the city. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's quite a bit and very impressive. So I will open it up to the commission. Christine, want to start us out?
The first question I have, not these aspens specifically, but do we have any concern with visibility with this dense landscaping? Is that being looked at?
I'm sorry, visibility, any concern with the visibility with the dense landscaping?
Well, I think when we look at the landscaping, I know last time when we met and we talked about landscape maintenance and lighting, those are all things that we'll look at if we go forward and implement this. The idea is to simplify and have kind of a minimalist approach to plant selection materials, but they have to be very hardy. This is one of the toughest areas that you can put landscaping is within a streetscape, so it has to be bulletproof. And we'd be looking at perennials and ornamental grasses, no-mow grass, things that can handle salt tolerance, both air spray as well as within the soil. So those are things, the details that would get worked out. It really is more of the kind of that overall impact that we're trying to accommodate with that visual movement. And that works best when you have large masses of things adjacent to each other.
That was gonna actually, that makes sense what you just said. Also, I was gonna ask about the snow storage, but
Yes.
I think you touched a little bit on that as well. My last question is maintenance of these perennials, aspen, whatever that may be, and in conflict with underground utilities. If something needs to be removed, is it easy to remove and replace without causing damage to utilities? You know how that things go.
Right, and I think, right. Again, we're working within the median and we're trying to be very conscious about that. There's always a little bit of risk when you're putting something of an enhancement within the median, and the types of materials that we're looking at are natural and durable. Corten steel naturally weathers, it turns a rusty color. Stone, is indigenous to the area. We see it all over the place, including here. So we're trying to, mimic nature as best we can, and using durable materials that still have a nice aesthetic to them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I love an artistic lighting. I love those elements, that kind of draw your attention and know that you're somewhere different. So that's always my favorite, but it looks great.
I have no questions. I think we discussed this in pretty great detail the meeting that we had. I'm excited to see this move forward. So thank you.
Chris?
I think it looks great. I concur with Alderman Lorik. Excited to see it come to fruition. Thank you for the hard work.
Thank you. All right, Don?
No questions.
Fred?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. Would you have sidewalks on both sides of the avenue?
Yeah, as part of the roadway project, which is outside of our scope, it is planned, I believe, to add sidewalk where there's currently not sidewalk along Drexel, which are only a certain portions, but that is the plan, to have full sidewalks on both sides. And obviously Oak Creek, or the Oak Leaf Trail currently is along this corridor as well, which would be retained as well.
What about lighting on the island? Is there going to be lighting like we have now?
So within the medians themselves, what we're recommending is that you could utilize those existing poles as part of this streetscape project. But if additional street lighting or a different design style, a more decorative pole was desired, that could work with this. But the only lighting proposed on top of that street lighting is more of a ambient aesthetic lighting as part of the wall that are along the medians. It would be a very low level light, but it would be programmable where you could see soft, slow moving kind of colors or different elements that could flow along the corridor and during Christmas time like this, you could see different lighting, colors that come alive, working with your existing streetscape stuff.
Thank you.
I have seen it before. It's a wonderful looking plan. I'm a big fan of low maintenance. I like the stone. I like the iron or the steel, however you want to call it. Actually a fan of the metal sculpt trees. They're very decorative. They add something different. Very low maintenance in my point of view. Maintenance is going to be key. This is all really great and we put it in and then we got to take care of it. Oh, I'm sorry, Chauncey. I left it totally out. Go right ahead. I was so busy looking at my map. I apologize. Go ahead.
Another question in regards to the lighting. So since there will only be additional lighting for aesthetics and just to give a certain ambient light, I just had a question in regards to some of the taller items having an impact on the light that exists today. So how would you actually create more light because you have more items blocking light versus letting light shine through as it is today, because there's nothing pretty much there, because you don't want the whole street dark, but you want to keep it bright so everyone can see kind of what's going on along the way.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny you say that, because as I'm driving in, we talk about lighting, and now that you've got your Christmas decorations on all the light poles, I'm guessing you've got double-headed fixtures almost every 100 feet. There's quite a bit of lighting out there. And it's necessary for the functionality of the street and the safety. So we think that's covered. The ambience of the enhancements really, and I think in the new renderings, Carrie, I don't know if you could go back to one of the kind of gateway light elements. I think it was a question, Fred, that maybe you brought up when we talked about the concept of too much light. You know, it might be too busy, but I think this image actually shows at nighttime that it's very subtle, and it's meant as sentinels. It's meant to catch your eye, not from its brightness, but from its beauty, and it's drawing you in. And the whole idea was to have these at certain intervals throughout the corridor so that it actually identifies the corridor as a special place. You know when you enter, you know where you're at when you're in it, and you know when you leave it. So if you see this image like on the bottom or on the right side of the slide, you see the daytime and then you see the nighttime imagery. Obviously this is artistic, but it's as best we can to emulate an evening shot of what the light would look like. I don't know. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, a little, because in this picture, you don't have a lot of large trees. So my concern were these large trees that may be blocking the light.
Yeah, and these trees, the quaking aspen, are quite open, and in the wintertime, they don't have any leaves on. So they're not necessarily large trees as you think of a shade tree. Again, they're meant as we talked about movement, you're going to see multiple trunks of gray color. You're going to see the leaves floating in, during the summertime, because they're green on one side and silver on the other. They're called trembling aspen for that reason. When the wind hits it, they flutter almost like mirrors. So the intent is that they're not going to overwhelm the corridor. They're just going to enhance that very linear aspect of the boulevard.
Okay, and then one final question in regards to maintenance. I don't know if this goes to engineering or to you all. With all those items in place, would it be easy to maintain the lights as they go out? Or need to be replaced, I should say?
I'll grab that one for you. Sure. Yeah, we have our own bucket truck. So, you just be sitting on the side of the road like we do right now, proper traffic control, and they go up aerial. So that's pretty easy. Speaking, I think I don't know if they got to exactly what you meant or was asking, but as far as with the height of trees, there are other options within those poles. We can extend the arms. Right now, we believe I think we have 8-foot arms. Those can go to 10 or 12. If it becomes an issue. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to address getting the light out on the road and still giving that feature of trees and taller objects within that median, but still providing that proper lighting on the road if needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Chauncey. So I kind of went on, like stone, I like the metal. I like the accent lighting along the walls. It doesn't have to be lit continually. The modulars go out, it gets expensive to repair, bollards, things like that. So in that case, a little less is more. I like the large monuments and the secondary monuments. Just one word of note, that secondary monument on 6th Street in Drexel. We just put a big sign there for freighters. You may want to look at how that incorporates there. One thing I would like to see, and I don't know, it's all budgetary, and I know you don't really have it on there. Walls are expensive. But if you're on the south side of Drexel from 13th to 10th Street, there's some residential homes there with a variety of fences and vegetation. And there's some right of way there with some sinking transformers. And it's a mess. We gotta, in the end, we can't put this kind of money into it and then have that stretch of road for a quarter of a mile kind of looking the way it is. I don't know what the answer is for that, but I think some brainstorming could go on there a little bit. Again, I like metal sculpts. It's great. And then the one other thing, and this has been a big issue in Oak Creek for a little while, at least top conversation, is how do we hide that railroad trestle? And working with the railroad can be difficult. We can't really hang signage on there, and we can't get permission to paint it. And it's just loads of things. Maybe in time they'll paint it and it'll look a little better, a little nicer. But and you guys would know better than me, is there's like a big obelisk we could put there to distract and take your eye to that versus the thing. I don't know.
And I think that's where we were headed, Mr. Mayor, is that originally we talked about all those things, and the concern of trying to integrate it and work with the railroad is very challenging. Painting it just doesn't, I don't think, do it justice. It's an ugly structure, and we think we want to try to probably best to hide it, put something in front of it, whether it's landscape elements or the sculptural trees, something that can be disconnected from it, and it catches your eye before, and the bridge really becomes the secondary.
Hide to hide a bridge. It's hide to, it's hard to hide a bridge. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But otherwise, I think it looks great. Hopefully it all falls within our budget. And we all make this magically work. It's really going to be excellent. And quite frankly, once we get this on Drexel, it won't be long until Ryan and Rawson and everybody else is looking for it as well, or it continues on up to 27th Street or down to Pennsylvania. I think Dawn said it best, this art can help define our city and our corridor. For better or worse, Milwaukee has that big sunburst sculpture down at O'Donnell Park, and people love or hate it, but either way, they come out of their way to look at it. And that's part of what Oak Creek's trying to achieve here too, is to be a destination. So I think we're on the right track. So, any further comments? Carrie, Jack, Lauren, anything? No? Okay. I want to thank you for sitting through some long subjects tonight and really coming out here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited about the project too.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, suggested motion, please?
Oh, please. Motion.
Clerk moves to approve the master development plan for the Drexel Avenue Streetscape project with the following conditions. Number one, that all plans for structures are submitted for Plan Commission review and approval prior to submission of permit applications and construction installation. And number two, that all detailed, revised, and finalized plans, including landscaping plans, are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications and construction installation.
Kuzikowski, a second.
Not sure who got that one. It was either Fred or Chris. But we do have a second on the floor. Roll call, please, beginning with Don.
Goldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Miller, aye.
Warwick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Okay, item 8G, conditional use permit. Request by Lakeview Motors LLC, an amendment to an existing conditional use to allow outdoor display of retail merchandise on a property in 9543 South Chicago. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is existing within the existing multi-tenant retail commercial building, which is zone B4. There is a conditional use for Lakeview Motors. That was approved in December of 2020 under a slightly different name. There was a slight adjustment there. So the proposal before the Plan Commission this evening is to amend the hours of operation within the conditional use permit, as well as allow for additional outdoor storage and display of vehicles for sale. Now, that was not included in the original conditional use permit approval. In fact, it was specifically prohibited. So this would be amending two things, allowing hours of operation that are not by appointment only, and also to allow for parking of vehicles on the property for display and sale. So within the staff report, there were a couple of concerns that staff raised. One, as part of the original conditional use permit, there were landscaping requirements, and there was a little bit of miscommunication and misunderstanding with those requirements. And we've spoken with the applicant, and we think we're all on the same page now with what's going to be required should this move forward. So with that in mind, the area for the parking for the outdoor storage and display of those vehicles and all parking areas do need to comply with code requirements for landscaping and screening and buffering. So we've had that conversation. With regard to the outdoor storage, we had noticed a couple of violations that had occurred since 2019. And that, again, I think goes to a little bit of misunderstanding of what the code was. Wake Zone was an operation that has a contract with Bender Park and the Milwaukee County Park System to provide, marine motor vehicle rentals and things like that. So your jet skis and things like that, canoes. What happened was there was an agreement made between the applicant and the landowner of this property to store those materials. And unfortunately, that did not get conditional use approval. So there was a little bit of a violation that occurred. It has been cleaned up now. The other misunderstanding was there were some unlicensed vehicles that had been parked and stored on the property. They were all parked in striped stalls, but they were unlicensed, and that was not something that was allowed by the existing conditional use permit. Those, again, were removed prior to tonight's meeting. So with that understanding that the applicant now has, we would just need to make it very clear within the conditional use permit, and we have included it in the suggested conditions and restrictions for consideration, that there would be no parking of unlicensed vehicles on site. Now, again, that was listed in the conditional use permit, but we're just going to make sure that everybody's aware that that's not changing. And also outdoor storage of marine vehicles, again, not allowed. So that is in the conditions and restrictions. If the Plan Commission wishes to recommend approval of the amendment, the only outdoor storage and display would be for those vehicles. So your typical consumer vehicle, your cars, trucks, what have you. No motorcycles, but just vehicles, just in case there were any questions regarding that. If there are any questions with regard to the specific conditions and restrictions which were included in your packets, on page 2 of 4, under 2E, that's highlighting the requirement for the landscape plan again, just making it very clear that we do need to have a landscape plan for those parking areas to screen them in accordance with code requirements. Under section 3A, we're only allowing one automotive motorcycle recreation vehicle and marine sale facility for Lakeview Motors. This is to distinguish them from the Wake Zone operation, just in case there was any concern or question about how many of these vehicle sales and rental operations are allowed on site. It's just one, just for Lakeview Motors. Under 3B, display and sale of new or used motorcycle, recreation vehicle, and marine vehicles and equipment shall be interior to the building. This is taken specifically for those particular vehicles and products, and it excludes vehicles for sale, your cars, your trucks. So under C4, outdoor storage, again, providing those restrictions and prohibitions. D, outdoor storage and display are limited to parking of new or used automobiles in striped stalls with landscaping and/or buffers in accordance with site plans as approved by the Plan Commission. And I should mention that your decision on this conditional use permit amendment directly affects the next item on the agenda, which is a site plan review for this property. So hours of operation, we're just taking out the appointment only and making it Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Under H, all parking areas shall be striped and landscaped in accordance with approved site plans and applicable codes. So that finally gets us to duration and assignment of conditional use, allows for 5 years and just kind of clarifies who this is for. We did have Crystal Lake Toyota Scion and Lakeview Autos in the original, so we're adding on Lakeview Motors just to capture all of those potential business names and operations. And with all of that in mind, there are 2 options for the Plan Commission to consider tonight. Concurrence with staff, and we made our assessments on some of the things that had been happening on the property. We have had subsequent discussions with the applicant, so it's been made very clear that the violations that had existed, which are now cleaned up, would not be allowed to move forward unless and until they apply for a different conditional use permit to allow for those things. And then the other option is recommendation of approval, as would be in a normal motion, which is on the screen for your consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Applicant, want to wait for questions? If they're even here. If not, we will go to commission. Chelsea, want to start us out?
Sure. I do have a question for the applicant.
I don't know if they're here, so you may just have to put it out there and staff can handle it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my question is in regards to what's the reason for this request to now add storage outside?
So the storage is basically allowing for a vehicle display area.
I think it's very certain, but I don't know if that's the person.
Oh, that's somebody? Hello, are you with us?
Hello, everyone. Yes, this is Abdel Ali, and I'm also joined by my partners, Nathan Pete and Fairfair. My address is 1420 West Foster Avenue.
All right, my address is 147 West Armour Avenue. And then this is Nathan Pete. My address is 1020 Ostergaard Avenue, Racine.
So we do believe that Carrie has a full understanding of what it is we're trying to accomplish. We're open to questions if you guys have any.
Yes, so to reiterate Commissioner Chandler's question, what is the purpose for the request?
The purpose for the request is we want to display vehicles that have been, serviced and prepped for sale outside. We've outgrown the indoor showroom as business is increasing here. As we're kind of growing things. We feel that that's the next natural step for Lakeview Motors is to be able to market our vehicles outside.
And if I could jump in as well, again, this is Abdel Ali here. We currently market all of our vehicles online through AutoTrader, KBB, and Carfax. That's pretty much how we expand on our current outreach. We do believe that parking the inventory in front of our business is going to attract potential buyers that don't see our online listings or our online presence, either because they prefer the conventional car buying process of window shopping and dealership hopping, or they just might be unfamiliar, like I said, with the online shopping experience. So this is going to enhance our operation.
Another question in regards to the operation. Can you provide a little more information on the operation? And the reason I ask that, if I remember correctly, when you first came in for approval, you were making modifications or providing sales to specific customers. So I'm just trying to understand the transition from specific customers. Now you're looking for all customers?
Essentially, yeah, we really want to expand on our outreach. When we started Crystal Lake Toyota Scion LLC back in 2019, our bread and butter was really in wholesaling of vehicles, so working on the logistics side of the operation, moving vehicles from the West Coast to the East Coast, moving vehicles from Central America out to the West Coast and vice versa, things of that nature. When we began with our indoor showroom, we were working on more high-end vehicles and appealing to more of the demographic in Oak Creek. However, we started to see a lot more customers coming from other parts of the region, southern Milwaukee generally speaking, and we allow for our customers to ask us, or not to ask us, to tell us what they're looking for through our online forum. And so now that we have a better understanding of what sells and what's hot in our region, we want to maintain stock of those vehicles. And with our limitation of footprint of only being able to house 8 vehicles and turning them around week by week, we do believe that having more space, leveraging our lease with our expanded lot and having more space outside, we'll have more cars in inventory to appeal to the masses, to more customers all at the same time. So if they're not interested in the BMW 328i, we have lots of other options for them.
Thank you.
And Fred?
Yeah, I have a question about Sunday hours. Isn't there a state law, something about selling automobiles or so forth on Sunday? I know dealerships are closed on Sunday, but does that have an effect on this person if he's selling cars as kind of a dealership?
Yeah, so we would not be selling any vehicles on Sundays. We would not be doing any type of paperwork or showings or anything like that. We would do appointment for showings on Sundays only, even though we wouldn't sell them. The Sunday is mostly for having employees here, detailing cars, things like that.
And I'd like to add to that as well. I mean, there's no law that prohibits necessarily test drives on Sundays. I know with our E&B partners with the Department of Transportation, that's the system we use to register vehicles. Sunday obviously isn't a general weekday, so those applications go into pending status, and I believe that may very well be the reason why we can't complete a sale on Sunday, because you can't register the vehicle same day. But we would like to allow customers in, schedule those test drives, move things along, and then close the sale the following day when they show up with a check, cash, etc.
You mentioned detailing vehicles. Can you explain what you mean by detailing vehicles?
Just a general wipe down, cleaning them up, making sure that, the windows are clean, there's not, any kind of spills inside.
So yeah, typically after we schedule these test drives, we do go back into the vehicle and just make sure it's in the best possible condition for the next customer if that one doesn't close the sale. So that includes wiping down the steering wheel, doing a light vacuum of the vehicle. If there's any fingerprints on the dash or on the radio, we try to eliminate those so that the car's in its best presentable state for the next customer.
Still have a question or concern about it, I should say.
Oh, okay.
He talks about detailing and other functions of the business, but it still boils down to he's selling cars. And I have questioned that. I'm a little concerned about
it.
So
I get you. I hear you. Don?
I have no questions at this time.
Chris? I have no questions. Greg? It's in the conditions and restrictions. It says outdoor storage is limited to the striped stalls. So is there no limit to the amount of vehicles other than how many striped parking spots they have on the premises?
No, and that's a great point. The Plan Commission should specify how many vehicles would be allowed in that area. The request is for 11 vehicles, and I apologize, there was a typo in the staff report. And this goes along with the site plan review, which is next on the agenda. The parking requirements are based on the number of employees, but the number of the number of salespeople specifically as employees. So code requires 2 customer stalls for every salesperson, plus whatever. We received some additional information that was not included as part of the original application or this application after the staff report had gone out, that there's only 1 salesperson on the premises at any time. With that in mind, they are reserving, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 6 customer and employee stalls. They are allotted 18 per their lease agreement, which then allows them to have 11. I guess it would be, they would have, I'm sorry, they would have 7 stalls. 7 stalls for their customers and employees, and a display of 11 vehicles outside. So that should be something that would be limited in here. So outdoor storage and display are limited to parking of 11 new or used automobiles and stripe stalls, et cetera.
And then, I don't know if this was cleared up or I'm just confused. Lakeview Autos, is the same owner of Lakeview Autos the owner of Wake Zone LLC?
Yes.
So maybe this is a question for the applicant. My assumption is that this coming summer, the county or Bender Park or whoever arranges the rental of those, I'm assuming they're jet skis or some type of personal watercraft. I'm assuming that's going to happen again in the summer. Being that they're still not allowed to be stored exterior, what is your plan for this coming summer with those?
Yeah, so I can answer that question. We are currently working with trying to select a vendor for a new dock system down at Bender. Unfortunately, that was originally planned for 2021 to have that dock system installed where we could keep those personal watercrafts down at the Bender boat launch area. However, the issues with the silt sediment deposits building up in the boat launch area, as well as COVID supply line restrictions, kind of pushed that project back into 2022. For right now, we have actually leased an alternative storage area outside of the city of Oak Creek in an enclosed facility for those vehicles to be stored until we're able to get that dock installed at Bender Park.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dawn?
I have a question about the lighting. Not that I'm super familiar with a car dealership, but usually they're all very well lit when there's cars for sale out in a parking lot, and it doesn't look like there is any exterior lighting.
So as part of the site plan, it will be a little bit easier to see, I think, when we get those images. There are 2 exterior light poles in that north parking lot currently. The site plan review did not request additional lighting.
Hey, Matt?
All my questions and comments have been stated.
Christine?
Nothing here, thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I apologize. If I could just add one more item here.
Yes.
I am noticing that we mention in the conditions and restrictions, no new pole signs, pennant flags, light pole flags, permanent banners, et cetera. That is going to remain in here. So just that, so everyone is aware, if this moves forward, that does not include drawing additional attention to that vehicle display area by means of additional signage or flags or things like that. So we would require screening of those areas as we normally would for any parking area. Just want to make it clear that we are not allowing for that additional signage there.
Okay. Boy, a lot of the questions have been kind of answered and brought up. So where do we sit with the landscape deal? I know it was a miscommunication, but either way, are we gonna get that cleared up in this deal?
So landscaping will be required for the vehicle parking areas, and that landscape plan would have to be brought back to the Plan Commission for approval.
And the cars that will sit there overnight on display, so to speak, will be 11.
If allowed by the Plan Commission, 11 stalls would be allowed for that vehicle display area.
7 would be required for employees and customers at any given time.
7 would be allotted for that, yes.
40 within here, but then wake zones given a handful.
No, there are 39 total parking stalls for the site. 18 have been assigned by lease to Lakeview Motors or Lakeview Autos. I apologize for if I get those two mixed up. And then there are 2 other tenant spaces. Wake zone is not a tenant. Okay. So one thing that we should also mention is that the outdoor storage and display area is limited to the parking of 11 new or used vehicles. It does say in accordance with site plans as approved by the Plan Commission, but I'd like to clarify that this is in the north parking area, just so that we're all clear of where the vehicles for sale would be.
Oh, they're in the north side. They're not gonna front 32?
Not according to the request.
Okay. Oh, that surprises me, but okay. I misunderstood that.
So there would be, I think there's 6 stalls east of the building, and then the remaining stalls are actually on that north parking area, but they're going to reserve 1 for their employee.
Okay. Okay, I guess, came through, they had a different business model. We put it out there, turned into some zoning violations. I went back and forth a little bit here in the spring of the year. I want to make sure we're corrected so, our zoning people are not dealing with this once again. So I want to be on the right track. Otherwise, I guess I kind of got my questions answered. So, commissioners, kind of hinges, who wants to make the motion?
One more quick question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
So this is a question for staff. I mean, I read the report and the concerns. It sounds like they addressed them prior to the meeting and cleaned this stuff up. Does your recommendation remain the same as in the report?
It's a matter of whether the Plan Commission feels that an expanded car dealership in this area is appropriate. Staff still have the same concerns, especially considering that there were, albeit cleaned up violations, there were some misunderstandings with regard to what was allowed on the property previously. If this moves forward, this is going to be a property that we are going to have to keep an eye on just to make sure that everybody is aware of what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, and I agree. I mean, I read the staff report and thought this might be an easy decision, only because of the violations in the past. And I understand that they've been cleaned up, but with the lake development happening, this is going to become an extremely busy, prominent area of the city. And I would hate to see more violations just continue to pile up. And here we are expanding what they're actually allowed to do. So that's my concern.
So I guess I do have, Greg kind of jogged me here. I got a couple of questions. So there's no work allowed outdoors on these vehicles. They're strictly parked.
Correct.
Parked, shown, and then at the appropriate time and not a Sunday, they're sold. That's kind of the deal.
And the Plan Commission can determine that 11 vehicles on permanent display may be too much for this area. If you want to reduce what you're going to allow, that is within your purview.
And secondly, Basin, we had the no work on the cars. Greg did bring it up. I mean, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Do we have it in writing that this landscaping is going and nothing, I know where I'm going with this. Thanks for bearing with me. So we have in writing that the landscape will take place and those cars will not be allowed there until the landscape is adequately signed off on? Or are these cars gonna magically appear the minute we put the hammer down on this after council? And then we wait on the landscape and chase them for that? I would like to see that condition put in.
A landscaping plan shall be submitted for review and approval by the Plan Commission prior to parking any vehicles for sale allowed by these conditions and restrictions. Landscaping in accordance with the approved plan shall be in place prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit and by no later than June 1st, 2022.
Excellent. And then, man, I'm spacing again. I lost it again. There's another one. Yeah, go ahead while I'm thinking.
I have a question for the applicant. So originally you came through, I think we all said this is kind of a unique idea. We liked it. And you believe something to the effect was, yep, that's really just our plan. Now it's becoming an outdoor, kind of starting to feel like a little bit of a dealership or a used car lot, whatever you want to call it. You're calling it an expansion for your base of customers. So what do you foresee the next, if you want to keep growing your business, what's the next step? What will you be asking of us in a year from now? Where do you because I'm not sure I want to hear, no, this is it. This is probably the most we'll ask for. Because now I'm not, I don't think I'd be too convinced of that. So what do you see your next step being? Where are you going with this business, I guess?
Really what our goal is to be able to supply vehicles to the community that that matches the community. We've taken a look at some of your guys' plans for the area down here. We really like them, we support them, and we want to be a part of that. And so our future goals are to continue growing the operation to a point where we're able to supply the community with entry-level luxury vehicles and electric vehicles that are, kind of on a brokerage scale, where we have just a couple that we're able to show off, to sell as we get walk-in customers. But really the long-term goal is to maintain the kind of automotive brokerage service that we supply.
And then if I may just chime in as well, this is fair. One of the things we've heavily discussed on is how much potential this building has. However, it is always going to be a limited potential. This building cannot do more than what we're really asking for. We have considered numerous occasions where we can try to see if we can occupy a building that has the zoning measurements to have not just an outdoor lot, but as well as a mechanic shop and a body shop. And we've determined, just based on the fact of the cost and the area that we are currently at, this would be a great location. An excellent location just to house some of our special vehicles that we see have a great opportunity in the area, but nothing that where we would just start throwing random cars. All Fords or all Audis or all, BMWs, nothing in that sort, just more of down the road where we possibly have 10 cars that's inside, that's around this building, could be on the side, and then a few inside where we have really nice showroom laid out. But our focus heavily at the moment is just getting something done for this location. So we're able to expand to another location where we can have those other vehicles. But we'd always want to keep just their standard 10 vehicles here and nothing more than that.
And to build on that, I think long-term vision-wise, right now we're just leasing the space. We don't own the building. But if we're successful and if we get this reconditioning facility and we're able to expand on our operation and afford the purchase of this building, that is the long-term goal here, really, is to take over the space and rebuild the building, expand on it and turn it into a dealership if the city of Oak Creek would allow us to do so and specialize in electric vehicles. That's more so a long-term 10-year is kind of what we're pinpointing it at right now. But it's all on the basis of how successful we can be, how much revenue we can drive, and how profitable we can be to get to that goal.
Exactly what I was looking for.
Okay, great. Going back in my reading, it kept off my head. We do have a 5-year, we won't call it sunset, but an expiration of the conditional use permit after 5 years. Do we want to put, if we have repeated violations, that X amount of violations cancels it out, or can we not do that?
Subsection 10, violations and penalties.
I think that puts me more at ease.
So we do have a process by which if there are violations and continued violations, there is a process by which we can revoke the conditional use permit. It has not happened in my tenure with the city, but this allows us to do so.
Where is it at again?
Subsection 10.
And if
Page
I
4.
may just cut in.
Okay. Well, you know, I think
The applicant is actually.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I apologize for that. If I may, I do want to kind of just quickly say that right after our last violation and working with trying to get these conditional use permits amended, we've realized that violation and how much of an impact it had on this project. And so we're working with getting a compliance officer involved in our firm, so that way we have someone who's on top of everything that has to do with the city and compliance, and so that way we are no longer in violation of anything. So that is something we are investing in, and we will have by early next year.
And if I could jump in on the repeated violations with regards to wake zone, that responsibility lies solely with myself and my. How do I phrase this correctly? I guess I was under the impression that things would move along with the city of Milwaukee at a much faster rate after we began operations in May of 2019. We already began talking about a long-term lease with the city, at which point we could invest in the city by having that long-term lease and have all of our assets stored at Bender Park. With the impacts of COVID and then now with the sandbar issue that we're facing, that just kept getting pushed back. So it was high on my radar that we got to get this fixed, but there wasn't really a good solution in place. And I realized that I'm making an excuse, but it's from the heart. I mean, that's really what happened here, and we have gotten that corrected. Additionally, with regards to the landscaping, that was a misunderstanding purely because I was under the impression that the order of events that were outlined in the conditional use permit outlined we wouldn't be granted a occupancy permit until conditions were met. And when we had the two inspections by both the fire department and city inspector, and they provided us with the occupancy permit, I thought we were in a good state. I thought we were fine. Carrie's made it clear that that's not the case, and that is why we are going to go through with this landscaping plan, submit that to you guys, ensure we get your guys' approval. And I'm firm in the belief that we will not encounter any additional violations going forward.
Okay. I'm glad to see it's in there. We now do have a compliance officer who was not with us early in the spring when some of this maybe went back and forth. And Laurie, if you want to elaborate on it, but since then we do have a city compliance officer, and you know, this will be flying on her radar, I would think. Laurie?
Sure. I was just going to say that this code violation actually started way back in March of 2019. Was the first time I tried to address it. And we did explain at the time to the applicant that this was indeed a violation, and that we did go back and forth. And my understanding was it was going to get taken care of, and it just did not get taken care of until this last month.
And when I get the Bender Park thing, and if you took them on off-site storage, you know, that's kudos. That helps solve a lot. Guess what I'm looking at is the 11 cars don't grow to 15, 18.
And it's within the Plan Commission's purview, once again, to limit the number of cars. If 11 doesn't feel right, you can reduce the number.
I myself, I guess given 11 and it's on that north side, I guess if it was fronting 32, I don't know. It's just me. So, okay, commissioners, where would we like to be?
Let's just go with the motion. Oh.
Is there any input on the number of vehicles for the outdoor display area? 11 is the request.
I kind of stated my point of view, seeing it's to the north. I am okay with the 11 if they're moving through them.
If I can make a comment, if you would look at 8H on the drawing, it looks like 11 is the amount of that the entire north fits.
I think there was an issue with the numbering and the printing of the materials. Yeah, there's more than 11 parking stalls there.
Okay, because when I counted it up, it's 11. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I think it just didn't print very
I
clearly.
think I would add, I'd like to see them striped, as I think
Yes, that
Greg or
is,
Matt pointed out, or someone to know.
they
that,
must
yeah.
be located in striped stalls as approved by the plan commission.
Correct.
Yep.
One vehicle per stall.
I don't know how else you would do it.
I don't know. Back.
They're standard stalls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody want to shoot a motion out?
And I move that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit amendment to allow outdoor storage and display of retail merchandise vehicles and additional hours of operation for Lakeview Motors on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road after a public hearing.
Gavich will second. Roll call, starting with Chauncey.
Chandler, yes. And I know.
Sullivan, no.
Willow, yes.
Mark, no.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, no. Donnie, no.
Seifert, no.
Okay. So if we don't have the plan review on H,
Nope, you still have to go through the plan review. You just have to acknowledge that the conditional use permit amendment was not recommended for approval. And I want to verify the vote here. I have Hannah, no, Sullivan, no, Lorick, no, Oldani, no, Seifert, no, and Guzekowski, no? Okay, yes, so that is a 6-3 vote. So the motion did fail. The next item on the agenda is a site plan review that was directly related to this conditional use permit amendment. Since that did not go through, there would be no motion, honestly. I think that you would have to have a motion to deny or not to approve at this point based on the fact that the conditional use permit amendment was not recommended for approval. So.
okay, so to play it safe, let's do a motion on H to review site and related plans for Lakeview Motors LLC for an outdoor storage of retail merchandise in the area at 9543 South Chicago Road. And then, of course, we will not approve.
So the way that it works, you make a motion in the affirmative and you vote in the negative, just like you did for the conditional use permit amendment.
Okay.
Can you put the motion on the screen?
It is.
I don't actually have a motion for approval that has been prepared for the screen. So the motion would be to approve site plans for the outdoor storage and vehicle display area on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road.
And I would second.
Well, you would make the motion. Hannah moves that.
Concur with the motion.
Concur.
Okay, so for clarity.
Lorick, second.
Yep. For clarity, we have the Plan Commission approving site plans for the outdoor storage and display of vehicles for Lakeview Motors at 9543 South Chicago Road. Motion by Hannah, second by Lorick.
Roll call. Starting with Hannah. Starting with Christine.
And I know.
Sullivan, no.
Willow, no.
Mark, no.
Gavich, no.
Guzekowski, no.
Donnie, no.
Seifert, no.
Chandler, no.
Okay. Holy cow. And here we are. That was H. That gets us to I, and that is the zoning code update. Looks like this young lady's been waiting a long time to talk to us. So, Carrie, Lori, would you guys like to do introductions?
Sure. We have with us tonight the amazing Jackie Wells from House Levine Associates. She's going to lead us in the final hopefully, discussion of the zoning code update. This is, as I said at the last meeting, your final opportunity to provide comments and questions. And since it is 8:45, and I do recognize that everybody has put in a marathon amount of work this evening, and I appreciate all of you so much. And considering Jackie has to go back to Chicago tonight, I'm going to limit the discussion to 9:30 as a hard cutoff time. So with that, we've got a couple of things that we'd like to talk about, and Jackie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be in front of you again in person. I know we've met over the past couple of years, I guess, at this point, virtually, but it's great to be in person again. So tonight we wanted to have some continued discussion on attached garages, following up on the conversation you all had without me at your previous meeting. I'll give you an overview of the public comment we've received on the full draft that's posted to the project website. And then if there's anything else we want to discuss, and then we'll go over next steps. So starting off with attached garages, we have two slides here that have the existing standards. So the next slide shows the standards that I think were the ones that really came into question or to debate in that last meeting. So the garage doors shall not exceed 45% of the width of the facade. They can't exceed 24 feet in width and then have to be recessed from that front elevation. So based on the concern that you all expressed about these couple of restrictions on garages, the Community Development Department did some research, did some looking into some approvals for homes in 2020 and 2021 to see what those formats were. So where was the garage located in respect to the facade? So the next slide shows a graph where 46 homes had a attached garage that was set behind the front facade, 37 had one that were set ahead, and 23 were quasi in line with that front elevation. So recognizing that there is quite a bit of variation in what has been approved, what's sort of trending in the community, and then also recognizing that the comprehensive plan has strong recommendations towards creating communities and neighborhoods that have more of that community feel, where you have more of the front porch space where you can better relate to your neighbors and have more of that public feeling. We are proposing some new standards that would vary the percent of the facade that could be occupied by a garage based on where that facade is located in regard to the front facade. So if it is attached and set ahead, it can occupy up to 45%. So that's the maximum we're currently proposing. If it's in line, it could go up to 50%. And then if it's set behind, it could go all the way up to 55%. And then for the set ahead, we want to ensure that we are restricting that snout house type of look. So we want to have a maximum projection. We're proposing 5 feet. That would be 5 feet from any elements of the home. So whether they have a porch that protrudes from the front elevation or whatever, that would be 5 feet from that. And then if there is, for the setback, to ensure that it is actually set behind, we're proposing to keep that minimum setback of 1 foot. So any thoughts on these proposed changes to the attached garage standards?
Did have a couple of comments from Doug, and I apologize that these were late. So I'm kind of hitting Jackie here without her knowledge. So one of the things that we want to kind of clarify is that the garage width would be a little bit different than the 45% restriction if it's a side entry garage. We want to allow for those side entry garages to kind of just continue as needed. As far as the maximum size of the doors, he did a little bit of a calculation, and it seems to be that it's more common for a 9-foot door as opposed to an 8-foot door. So he's suggesting that we don't have a 24-foot, we have a 25-foot maximum. And we talked about the projection for the 5 feet, and we just want to make sure that we have clear language as to what we mean by subordinate. So those were the director's comments. I think we can get there. We're almost there in this definition right here.
Yeah, and these attached garage standards, they would apply only if it's on that front elevation of the house. If it's a side entry garage, then these would not apply.
Okay. Comments?
Yes, I have a quick question. Yeah, so
go ahead, Greg.
When you say side entry garage, does that mean side entry that goes backwards from the front of the house, just because I see L-shaped homes where the garage is actually protruding towards the street, but it's still a side entry garage.
So I think Carrie might have some photos to show, but I think, yes, it could be the garage, you kind of go around, so it's facing the side of the home, but it is more L-shaped than having the garage doors as like sort of the first thing that you see in the home.
So we've got a couple of images from actual building permit applications. So what we're calling quasi inline is the garage is appearing to be no farther ahead than the farthest projection from the house. I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly because we are running out of time. So sat head, I think everybody understands what that means. Your garage is just kind of put onto the house. The house is what it is, and the garage is kind of just plopped on. That's an indelicate way of saying that. And then set behind, these are actual precedent images from what has been submitted for building permit applications. So this was what we had in mind with the original language for the garages. We did actually have some garages that were attached on the back of the house. So this would be kind of your side entry garage, but on the back of the house as well. You see the door is oriented on to the side of the house. So if you put that on the front and just rotate it a little bit, the continuous facade would be actually the short end of the garage door, the short wall.
And then with the garage sizes, is that only if it's forward facing? I say that because my dream is like a 4-car garage. Would that not be allowed, or would that not be allowed facing the street?
Facing the street.
Okay.
Or you could have a really, really big house and then it could.
Only because then that would be 32 feet of garage door versus the 24.5.
You're correct. Yes.
Okay.
Keep in mind, we also still have the limitation on the size, right? The overall, basically based on the size of the home, the living space of the home.
This is just an odd one, and it's a one-off. But there is a home in my subdivision built years ago, probably about 25 years back, sits on a corner lot. So if you can picture, the lot probably has a south entrance to the driveway. When you come in the driveway, you'd go directly into the garage, but to the right is actually the front door. So it's kind of like this. If you can picture this, and this would be the garage, and the door is actually here. What does that do for you?
Does the front of the house read as the front of the house?
Yes, it does. You know what? I'm going to drive by it tonight. I've walked there. I've talked to the people. It's a really strange configuration on that corner lot.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I think those are rare.
Yeah, and it's a different lot because it ain't on a perfect corner. It's on a rounded road and it's a rounded road and then a stop. It's like a 3-way.
Wouldn't the front of your house be based on your address?
The front, yeah. Well, typically the front facade is facing the street.
You could say faces Wilding.
Right, so if the address is 8500 Wilding, that's the front of your home.
But actually, if you really want to get into it, it's almost facing 13.
I think it's how it's addressed.
You know,
that should be your front of your home is how it's addressed.
Then that's how we've typically assigned addresses, is the orientation of the home determines the address.
That's how it should be continued. We shouldn't try to convolute it, and that's one situation.
I understand what the mayor's saying. It's
a
the
weird
entrance.
thing, and I don't mean to get us off track because we're at a time limit, but we'll have to figure that one out when it comes.
And there's always going to be those one-offs that the ordinance can't account for. Exactly. So that's what the variance process is for, the PUD process, all of that. There's still that flexibility.
And we might have, if I could ask for just a couple of suggested images within the code for this attachment.
Yes, of course. Yeah. As there's a graphic that is supporting the existing regulations, we can update it to reflect these changes as well.
Other questions, comments concerning the garages?
Don't want to rush anybody. I put the 9:30 on there just.
Much easier conversation than the last time through.
I personally think it addressed a lot of the concerns the commission had, so I appreciate that effort.
Yeah, I agree.
Always a compromise to find.
If you think of something later, we do have a little bit of time to incorporate some changes, but we're going to have a cutoff date so that we can make the January 11th.
So the next thing I think we wanted to go through was an overview of public comment. So we received several emails from the public about the ordinance that's posted online. So the first person was commenting on the outdoor lighting limitations, just first wanting to ensure that the new standards are enforced, and then encouraging the city to adopt the international night sky policy so that it would further limit the amount of outdoor lighting that would be allowed. The next person has these 3 bullet points about sign regulations. So their hope was that the new sign ordinance would be sufficiently clarified from what is existing so that sign companies don't have to contact staff and with questions delaying the sign permit approval process. They encouraged an allowance for small businesses or small local businesses to have larger sign allowances. And then for sign companies and business owners that put up signs without a permit to be fined. So currently it's only, and I believe the city is really only allowed to fine property owners, not business owners or sign companies. So the next couple comments, the first one was really about missing middle housing and how the zoning ordinance could better accommodate that. So they were suggesting that townhomes or row homes that have 3 to 10 attached units be distinguished from multifamily. So that was a revision that was made based on staff direction and is incorporated in the current draft. And then the next comment was about the maximum height of accessory buildings, that they should not be restricted based on the height of the primary building. So currently that height restriction is 17 feet or the height of the primary building, whichever is lesser.
Very quickly on the townhomes, the 3 to 10 units attached. Is that single story? Or is that defined?
I don't think we had a definition for number of stories. What this is really trying to get at is single family attached. So if you're side by side, your attached row homes or your townhomes, those kinds of things.
You could actually have, I'll pick a number, let's say 6 single family attached dwellings on one unit.
Correct. It would technically be one building because it would be one continuous
And
thing.
that would be considered multifamily.
Right now, anything in excess of 4, actually 4 is what is defined in the code right now. You can have 2 as part of the RD1 district. Basically, once you get above that, you're in a multifamily. So you have 4 by right as part of RM1. But anything more than 4 is a conditional use. This is saying for single family, not your typical multifamily building, because they're going to be owned individually.
Because they're going to be individually owned.
Because they're single family residential.
They're not rentals.
I don't think we necessarily define ownership in those cases, but this is what it's intending to get at, is those single family attached units, just allowing more of them to be attached before you get into a multifamily situation. And Jackie, please jump in if I'm misrepresenting this.
The ordinance can't distinguish between owner and renter occupied units, but it, like Carrie was saying, it's a model of housing that's much more often owner occupied rather than renter occupied. And in the draft, the latest version of the draft, I can't remember the maximum number of units, but it's divided. I believe we have a 2-story maximum proposed.
Oh, and I'll just put it out there. So in Greg's area, the chateaus, there's like 8 units per building.
And that was considered multifamily. Well, we don't have the opportunity for that right now.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would that affect it if, say, they were 6 single stories?
So let's take Lakeshore Commons for an example. They have 2-story townhomes that are attached up to 8 in a building, one building. That would be allowed with a conditional use permit, I believe, in the proposed zoning code as single family.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Takes me a little, but I get it.
Does that have an effect on, just because this came up recently in the district, does that have an effect if it's considered single family on city services like garbage and things like that? Or would they still have to have, maybe that's not
I think it
the
comes
place
down
for the
to,
question.
no, it doesn't come down to owner occupied, because you can owner occupy a condo and you don't get city services of trash pickup, because then you have a homeowners association.
I think that would be a conversation that we would clarify with DPW. Well, garbage pickup is not part of the
No, it
zoning
ain't
code.
part of zoning. Because in most condo complexes,
You've treated them as multifamily, and that's the way that they've addressed the trash receptacles. But if we allow these, I understand what Alderman Lorik's question is. We'll get clarification from DPW.
That's, I believe, typically handled based on the number of units. So I think they likely have a
Then if
standard.
it's a private development, that road's gotta be built to our specs. And in some cases, they're not, because they're kind of done like in Chateau, they're done like parking lots. I'm getting way off course. But anyways, go ahead.
So we also wanted to make sure that everybody was comfortable with accessory dwelling units. Does everybody understand what we're trying to do with them, what they are, how they're going to be applied?
We should have some hidden slides on the accessory dwelling units if we want to bring those up for reference.
Right.
At least in the one that I sent you, I don't know if you might have not carried over all of them. Before we bring up the standards, were there any questions on accessory dwelling units or how we're proposing to approach them?
I think we're all very tired, so that's why.
That's go ahead.
Fair enough.
No, I think you got it. I mean, without a doubt, it's kind of that middle housing that we're defining.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's that gentle density.
as things are changing, so. Comments, anything? Ready to roll to the next?
Sorry. Here we go. So accessory dwelling units, everybody understand what they are and how they're going to be applied?
What you're basically talking about is like a mother-in-law suite.
Mother-in-law suite.
So it's a standalone thing, not a shed. You're not putting your mother-in-law in a shed.
You can put her above the garage.
But it's two dwelling units on a lot.
Yes.
Now, the distinction that we're making here is that you cannot have your own exterior entry if it's attached to the house. Obviously, if it's above a detached garage, you're going to have a separate entry. What we're trying to get at here is these aren't going to be rental units. They have to be either owner occupied or occupied by a member of the family.
Accessory and
They could. And this is what we have heard for downsizing. So, you can move your growing family into the house, but still stay on the lot yourself. Actually, I just had somebody ask me that question, if they could do it.
But they do have to have their own plumbing facilities,
Yep.
electrical service.
Still have to meet all of the building codes.
Gotcha. Cool idea, something different. And quite frankly, they did that a long time ago on the far south side.
Accessory dwelling units have been around for as long as we've had housing. It's just, how are they called and how are they treated?
Well, there's a reason they're called what they are. That's why they exist.
It's an accessory dwelling interior.
Oh.
It would be like if you converted your basement into a separate unit, it's often would be an attic space, but you have a separate entry. It would be completely separate from your house, but it would be interior to the primary home.
They actually have some of those in Brook Preserve. Now, I don't know if they consider, an exposed basement its own entry point. But, I know they advertise them that way.
We also have had some building permits that have come through where you have one common entry point, either you can count the garage too, but the front door is the common entry point, and there's a door that's separating the suite from the rest of the house. But you would never know it from the exterior, but that's the only difference. RV parking? Anybody have any concerns with what we have here? Limiting it to one.
No, but boy, are we gonna have a hard time addressing grandfathering in people that have been doing this forever.
Typically for temporary uses, you wouldn't have to, yeah. But it's more, I think, of the culture, the idea of being able to and not being able to, and the enforcement of that.
Now, I will say that we did have a lot of people that contacted us because they saw something on social media about this. So I'm not entirely certain what the concerns are. I don't know if they were worried that we were going to be completely outlawing parking of RVs. And I don't know that they looked at the draft code, and we've not received any specific input about RVs since this code was posted for public comment. So just be aware that there is concern. It was going around on social media, and you may get phone calls.
Yeah, I can just think of one instant where a person actually picked up an outlot, and then, in the summertime, they'll have their RV camper they tow, and they'll put it there and set it up, and take it away every couple weekends. But for the most part, it's there all summer.
It's an RV for this section of code.
It would be all of those types of recreational equipment. Yeah.
So it's not limiting the number a person can have as long as they're all on a paved surface, that it is not limiting?
No, it is.
So is, and Matt, maybe is for you, definition of a hard paved surface, is that asphalt or concrete, or can they put down traffic bond and call it done? No. Okay.
Consider gravel. We consider gravel.
You're not on mic. Just for the minutes.
I think per code, we don't consider gravel an acceptable.
And I guess I just say that because somebody's gonna look and go, wow, it's gonna cost me a lot of money to pave or asphalt this, and I'll look for a cheaper alternative for the summer storage.
I think you can do the ribbon paving,
Yes.
which is like brick and ribbons that, a couple feet wide that you just pull your trailer on. That's acceptable, I believe, under the new code.
Yes. And pavers would qualify as well.
So they've provided a number of options that would be more cost effective, I think, to be able to do this.
Okay.
One of the subsections does say one recreational vehicle may be stored outside in the rear or side yard of an occupied residential or agricultural lot. You get one.
Can you repeat that?
One recreational vehicle may be stored outside in the rear or side yard of an occupied residential or agricultural lot.
Oh, so they get one.
They get one.
Oh, that's gonna satisfy 90% of the people.
Boat and trailer. That's outside, so you could still store one
You can
inside.
fit them in your garage.
So you can put your
then-
boat inside and you could store your camper outside.
It's encouraging people to store their things inside a building.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it's not prohibiting you from parking your RV appropriately. Your one RV.
Okay. Any other questions on that one?
I think that was all that we had.
Okay,
discussed going over.
so that's all we have for specific topics. Did anybody think of anything else? I would encourage you to take a look at the code between now and when we are going to be presenting it for adoption at your January 11th meeting. We do have an executive summary that we've prepared that will be available on the website, if not tomorrow, the day after. It does go over the major highlights of the changes to the code. It's not going to be everything, but it does give you an idea of what we are changing. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. The sooner we can get those addressed by the code, the better. We don't want to be trying to, like we were doing tonight, coming up with language on the fly to satisfy a concern. The January 11th agenda is quite lengthy. I will let you know. Everybody got their applications in for tonight. Everybody got their applications in for that first one in January. So if we can get comments and questions and concerns by December 31st or January 3rd at the latest, that gives us a little bit of time to incorporate those comments and questions.
Well, nothing night of the 31st, so do some homework.
If you come up with some epiphany while you're drinking champagne, there's nothing wrong with that. But we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the code. I understand it's lengthy, it's completely different. It's laid out a little bit different than what we have in our code. But we're all going to have to apply this thing. And it's going to have to work. And we understand we're going to miss something that we have in here that we thought was going to work great. We're going to find out when we apply it, doesn't work as we thought.
Someone's popular. Okay, any further questions? And again, thank you for sticking through a very lengthy meeting.
No problem.
We appreciate it. But on the bright side, we didn't take you to 9:30, so. Commissioners, any questions, comments before I look to adjourn? No? So a couple announcements. Commissioners, this is our last meeting for the year. Congratulations. We have accomplished a lot in the last year and a lot of big stuff. Creek continues to grow. And I kind of meant it. I didn't mean to slight the council, but this is kind of where the sausage is made right here, and a lot of stuff gets vented at the planning, and then it goes to council, and they kind of go, okay, I kind of looked at planning's notes, and they're very comfortable with it. Greg and Chris make some comments, and usually everything's real good, and then things happen. So I do appreciate all the hard work you put in, because it is a commitment. Again, it's not easy, and it's not for everybody, but you guys do a great job. So I want to wish you all happy holidays. Take some time off. You deserve it. Spend some time with your families. Wish you good health, prosperity, and everything that goes along with the holiday wishes. So we did light up the square. It is out there. It is gorgeous. So if you do have an opportunity to get out there with your family, your friends, it's a great place to take some pictures, hang out. There are some Christmas trees. They're stuffing stockings for seniors. It's a lot to say at this time of the night, but you can pick up a stocking there. It's going to go to the booth house. Salvation Army is helping to do that, and our Celebrations Commission has taken that on once again for a great cause for people very much in need in our community. So if you could be kind enough to take that, we appreciate it. With that, commissioners, I'll give you the floor if you want to say something at the end of the year, because I'm always hogging up the mic. So Christine?
Yeah, I would say it was really a pleasure. I had a lot of fun, a lot of sometimes stuff to stay that long with my kids keep texting me, but it's been a lot of fun, a lot of learning experience for me. So I appreciate you guys having me here. Thank you.
Matt, I don't know if we'll have the pleasure of having you all next year, but it's been a pleasure so far.
This potentially is my last meeting, so.
Yes, it is. Matt is moving on up, and he's going to be our head engineer, so we may get somebody new here.
Yes, so we'll see at the new year if I'm back up here for a few.
You probably get the call ad shot, so.
Yes, I do. So, but no, it's been a good learning experience for me up here also. So I appreciate everyone's effort, and everyone puts in a good time here. So thank you.
Fun.
I'm very disappointed. I will miss the next meeting. So you guys do a good job without me. Somebody will have to adjourn. But yeah, have a great holiday, everybody.
Greg?
Nothing other than have a great holiday to everybody.
Chris?
And
Don?
I have no comments at this time.
All right. Brad?
I just want to thank the planning department for all their work and effort they put into our schedules and so forth. It's made it a lot easier for us making decisions when they do all the work for us.
You are correct, and they laid out really well. And again, nobody's perfect and nobody ever gets it right. But man, I'll take their batting average any day. Yep. They do really well. And again, thank you to staff, planning, IT. I mean, it's really a group effort. Engineering's in there. When you do get in here, better part of the day, some days, not all the time, you see what's going on between departments. And we do an amazing amount of work here in Oak Creek, and we have a great reputation for working with clients. We kind of don't, it's kind of my philosophy. We don't start at no, we can end up there, but we just don't slam the door. They really take the time with people, and there's amazing the amount of things. Public always says, oh, you guys just kind of go right through it. There's a lot of things that the public never sees that stop long before we even hear about it. So good point, Fred. Jocelyn?
Happy holidays. That's it.
And that is it. So again, thank you, staff. Carrie, wonderful job as always. Lori, thank you. Jack, this is the best part of the whole deal right here. This is where the fun happens. So I do appreciate you coming out. So gets us to adjournment. And as I said, keep an eye on the quorum for the 11th, because I will be out of town. Commissioner Carrillo's out, and I believe Commissioner Hannah's out. So, it is cold and flu season, and we still have all the COVID stuff going on. So you just never know what could happen, and that can throw a wrench in you. So, but I do know that ahead of time. So with that, motion to adjourn, and also we'll adjourn Plan Commission for 2021.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 9:18.
Bickford seconds.
Roll call, beginning with, I don't know, how about Matt?
Sullivan, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Laura, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Goldani, aye.
Sleeper, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.